A suffocating gasp slipped from her lips as her hands clawed wildly through the stifling dark. She was trapped, like a canary locked inside a cage woven from silk and lies. In the night, his voice slid into her ears like the whisper of a venomous snake. He spoke of military merit and rewards, saying he would give her, the Saintess, to the victorious soldiers as a prize. In the darkness, his smile was cruel as sin, his eyes gleaming with possessiveness and a predator's hunger. He seized her chin, his touch like ice against her skin, mocking her resistance. In a rasping voice, he told her they would not go easy on her just because she was a woman. She was his plaything, his property. She was nothing. His words, his gaze, were heavy enough to suffocate. She could not endure it any longer. The endless surveillance, the unceasing torment, the gilded cage slowly grinding her soul to dust. Enough. It was enough. A desperate force suddenly tore through her whole body. With this blood, she thought, as a crimson radiance burst from within her. Trembling, she cupped the roiling mass of energy in both hands. Her white gown gleamed beneath that ominous light, her feet slowly lifting from the floor. With one last, soul-rending cry, she called him forth. The world dissolved into a whirlpool of red and black, and in the abyss a contract was forged. She had done it. She had traded her soul to a demon king from another world, all to rewrite a fate more terrible than death. From the shadows emerged a monstrous figure. Its voice rumbled low, shaking the foundations of her reality. "Tell me," it roared, scarlet eyes locking onto her. "What is your wish?" The beast looked down at her in the moonlit chamber, dreadful and yet like a savior. And so the bargain was made. But in another world, a different soul came to dwell in an equally proud body. A woman named Changyashi, a queen in her own world. Her gaze was sharp and unyielding as she looked down upon the world she had conquered. She was the proud, aloof butterfly of the business world, a strong-willed CO, yet she was suddenly swept into the fate of a forgotten princess of a fallen kingdom. A new destiny was beginning to unfold. "I told you, I can save you," a voice from the past echoed. A promise had already been made. "Work with me," that person had once said, "and in return, I will lift the curse placed upon the Priscilla family." She was Alice Catalet, the jewel of the Catalet kingdom, the Saintess blessed with divine power. And now, she no longer wished to be anyone's cage canary. Her soul had been offered up in exchange for rebirth for a new chance. But her new partner was a man wrapped in frost. Friedrich Priska, the sharpest sword in the kingdom. His brilliance had been born from blood and a terrible curse. His cold, golden eyes met hers as he asked, full of suspicion, why he should trust her. A faint smile brushed her lips as she countered, asking if he did not even dare to try. And so, the young eagle spread new wings and set foot upon a path of revenge, power, and a dangerous love taking root. She extended her hand, and he took it, their fingers intertwined over the glowing. "Magic circle, this is my proposal," she declared. Yet the hearts of two people longing to embrace were slowly drawn tighter and tighter by the thorned vines of deceit. A story of a deadly rose was about to begin. The moon hung high in the heavy night sky. Pale moonlight spilled over the silent palace courtyard. Inside the palace, behind layers of silk and shadow, a heavy sigh escaped her lips, followed by a painful moan. Her body trembled with fever and humiliation. "Liar." The crown prince looked down at her, smiling, his face flushed from violent exertion and cruel satisfaction. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He was enjoying her suffering. "This Saintess title," he said thoughtfully, "is even more useful than I imagined." Alice turned her face away, her golden hair spilling across the pillow as a tear slid down her cheek, marked with shame. The sacred sigil, faintly glowing on her chest, seemed to mock her purity. "Don't you think so, Alice?" he murmured, his voice seeping into the depths of her soul like poison. Yet in her beautiful eyes still burned a fire of resistance that refused to go out. The light in her eyes, that infuriating pride. No matter how he humiliated her, her gaze always seemed to say the same thing. "I am above you." What did she have to be so arrogant about? He roared, his patience finally snapping, and lunged at her, pinning her wrists above her head. Her muffled protest was swallowed by the darkness. How dare you? Why him? She tried to scream, but he instantly crushed himself down over her. Alice, he sneered, his face dangerously close to hers. You're no longer that lofty princess. He leaned in, lowering his voice to a threatening whisper. Now you can only survive beneath me. He slammed his mouth onto hers in a brutal, punishing kiss. A tear slipped from the corner of her eye as his lips violated hers. Intense disgust and revulsion surged through her, and she bit down hard. He cried out in pain and jerked back, clutching his bleeding lip. Have you lost your mind? He shouted, eyes full of shock and fury. He wiped the blood from his mouth. His expression twisted into something truly ugly. I was even planning to go easy on you for healing my wounds, he said through clenched teeth. You really don't know gratitude. He looked at the blood on his fingertip, a dark promise rising in his eyes. Then he grabbed her nightgown. His knuckles whitened from the force, and a wicked smile spread across his face. The former Saintess reduced to a filthy camp prostitute, he said almost to himself, his gaze sweeping over her body in disgust. They'll love that. You forced me to do this, Alice. Thinking her name in his heart, he turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing through the room. He stopped at the door and gave one final order without looking back. If you want to beg me, then show some sincerity. He left her there alone, a crumpled heap of white silk and shattered pride curled on the floor. Silence descended over the room. She slowly pushed herself upright, the empty splendor of the bedchamber pressing down on her so hard she could barely breathe. A pure, absolute fury swept through her. With a hoarse scream, she struck the vase from the flower stand beside her, sending it crashing onto the marble floor in a spray of shattered porcelain. She stood amid the wreckage, her long hair falling down her back, her bare feet only inches from the sharp fragments. Her cold blue eyes, like splintered ice, fixed on a broken shard of porcelain. She snatched it up, letting it cut into her palm without the slightest hesitation. Crimson blood streamed between her fingers. Now, no more. A spinning red magic circle blazed to life beneath her feet, feeding on her fury and blood. Power rushed through her body, her long hair flying as she cradled the pulsing sphere of energy in both hands. Her feet lifted from the ground as she began to chant, "With my blood, I summon you into this world." Chaotic energy exploded through the room, and a demonic presence tore through the curtains of reality. A massive wolf-shaped monster appeared before her, its voice deep and ancient, echoing like something from primordial ages. "It has been a long time since I've felt such pure power," it said, its glowing red eyes fixed on her. "Speak, what is your wish?" Alice looked up at the fearsome beast, her face masked in cold fury. She wanted only one thing. Only that mattered. Her voice was hoarse and trembling with hatred as she spoke. "I want revenge. Revenge against Lias Cameron." The memories surged into her mind, sharp and bloody. He destroyed my kingdom. She saw her homeland swallowed by flames, her people butchered. He murdered my father cruelly, and even fed his bones to wild beasts. Her father's blood-stained hand reached toward her, and she cried out his name. That scene burned into her eyes. Day after day, he tormented me without mercy. Those phantom pains, that endless humiliation, all remained vivid. She fell to her knees, her voice shattering into a desperate plea. "Please, help me take revenge." The demon watched her coolly. "I can grant it, but what will you offer in exchange?" She did not hesitate in the slightest. A hard resolve flashed in her eyes. "My soul." A dreadful smile split the demon's fang maw. "Then we have a deal, human." The scene dissolved and shifted to another time, another place, a modern bedroom, clothes scattered untidily across the bed. A woman with red lips and matching red nails lifted a cigarette to her mouth, smoke curling around her face. She was Chung Yashi. Reclining on the bed, she idly scrolled through her phone. On the screen was an image of a web novel character. For fallen St. Alice to end up like this. How pathetic, she muttered. A man's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Darling." He leaned against her in a spoiled, clingy way, nestling at her side. "What is it now?" she asked. The man smiled, expectant. "We've gone on so many dates already. Shouldn't we make this relationship?" Her crimson eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of emotion passing over her face. With deliberate precision, she stubbed out the cigarette in the ashtray. "Did you forget my rules?" she asked, her voice dropping into something dangerously soft. She sat up, her expression unreadable. The man looked a little flustered. That's not what I meant. He reached out to touch her, his hand falling on her shoulder. Don't touch me. She flung him off at once, as if burned. She rose to her feet, turning her back to him, her voice as cold as words carved on a gravestone. Don't come see me again. I don't like playing with people who have no sense of boundaries. Without looking back, she walked straight into the city night. In the vast sea of strangers, she was only a solitary figure. She stopped at a street corner and lit another cigarette. So boring, she muttered under her breath as smoke drifted from her lips. She was in her 30s, the CEO of a well-known corporation. Money, status, fame, everything others fought desperately to obtain, she already had it all. Yet all of it felt hollow. She stood at the peak of success, with countless hands stretching up toward her feet, and yet she felt as though her story had already ended. What am I supposed to do next? She wondered, as though staring at the blank page after the end of a book. The man from the bed flashed through her mind. Love? She took a drag from her cigarette, a mocking smile hanging at her lips. Why are so many people obsessed with romance? She said softly, looking out over the city lights. Idiots! She gave a scornful laugh. At its core, love was nothing more than the absence of responsibility, rejection, and initiative. As she crossed the street, she sank deeper in her cold, weary thoughts. A framed photo of a happy family surfaced in her mind. It was a painful memory buried deep in her heart. There is no such thing as real affection between men and women, she thought bitterly. Anyone who believes that is a fool. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light. The shriek of tires scraping the pavement split the air. She looked up, eyes widening in shock, and saw a massive truck barreling straight toward her. The world exploded into a symphony of shattering glass and twisting metal. Then darkness. Then a spreading crimson. Her life, her memories, that faded family photograph. All of it was stained red with blood. The hands of the clock spun wildly backward, as though time itself were beginning to collapse. 2 years earlier, the royal capital of the Setilo Kingdom, Yejisai City. Chung-Yashi sucked in a sharp breath, consciousness crashing back into her through searing pain. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning wood. Where is this? She murmured. A violent ache stabbed through her head, and shouts echoed in the chaos. Alice is here. Catch her. She jerked her head up to see armed soldiers rushing in this direction. Why is it so loud? Who are these people? The soldiers stormed past her, armor clashing. Her eyes widened with growing alarm. They're after me? She had no time to think. She could only hide first. Her heart hammered so hard it nearly burst from her chest as she scrambled for cover, the hem of her unfamiliar skirt licked by the flames. She darted behind a stone pillar. She pressed herself deep into the shadows. For now, this seemed like the best option. Her breathing came fast and ragged. The guards rushed past like a storm. Where did she go? Was your report false? One demanded. I saw her come in with my own eyes, another insisted. Damn it, she must have slipped past us. Come on, keep searching. She cautiously poked her head out from hiding and watched them leave, her mind in total confusion. Something's wrong. Didn't I die in an accident? Where is this? Who are these people? Why are they dressed like this? She looked down at herself, a strange green dress with a ruffled collar and lace trim. Her hand rose to her throat. This is... A cold, ethereal voice rang out deep within her consciousness. Soul from another world, you are the one I have chosen. Come and fulfill my revenge for me. A violent pain tore through her skull, and she collapsed beside the pillar. Clutching her head, she gasped in agony. What memories are these? Countless images that did not belong to her poured madly into her mind. A burning city, a desperate battle, a kindly old man with panic written across his face, his hands drenched in blood. Run! Lias has already ordered the entire city sealed off. I won't let you fall into his hands, he begged, pulling her tightly into his arms, his voice thick with tears. Alice, don't be afraid. I will always love you. Alice. The name echoed, strange yet familiar. Then she saw him, that cruel blonde prince seated upon a throne, a triumphant smile on his face as he gave the order. Go and bring the princess back at once. She saw herself, or rather, the girl who had originally owned this body, running desperately for her life, her face streaked with tears and soot. Father! The girl cried out as she stumbled through the burning streets. She tripped and fell hard onto the stone pavement, a cry of pain escaping her lips. And then, in an instant, everything aligned. The novel she had been reading on her phone, that tragic heroine, that cruel prince, it all made horrifying sense. She snapped her eyes open, and they had become a startling blue. I transmigrated into the novel. I became the heroine of fallen Saint Alice herself. It was a tragedy, a cautionary tale about a princess named Alice. She was the embodiment of everything beautiful in the world. Gentle, kind, her people did not merely love her. They revered her, seeing her as a living saint. And not without reason. Alice possessed a holy power, a radiance capable of healing any illness, a blessing granted by the heavens themselves. But that blessing hid a dark secret. When it was shared in an intimate way, the power grew even stronger. Her father, the old king, knew the danger in that. He understood that if the secret were revealed, it would destroy not only Alice, but the entire kingdom. So he did everything in his power to protect her, using every means possible to hide her light from the darkness gathering beyond the borders. But the wolves had already scented blood. His name was Lias, the crown prince of an enemy kingdom, a tyrant who craved power and craved even more. A healthy body capable of wielding it. He invaded the Setilo kingdom with overwhelming force, a torrent of steel and fire battering the city walls. He had only one objective, to hunt down the fleeing Princess Alice. He found her, and he destroyed her. He drained her power and humiliated her in the vilest possible ways, using her sacred gift to satisfy his own desires and completely shattering her spirit. Lias inflicted every cruelty he could imagine upon her. But even through all the pain and humiliation, Alice never bowed her head. Her soul, though battered and scarred, refused to break. In the end, once his body had healed and become whole, Lias lost interest in her. He discarded her like a broken toy and passed her from one power-hungry noble to another, a chained prize for the arrogant elite. Cold-eyed bystanders, loyal hounds, twisted deceivers. The Alice of the past had been bound in shackles, a prisoner of her own story. But that story is over now. This body, this power, all of it belongs to me now, Chung Yashi. I will never repeat the same mistakes. This is no longer a tragic story. This is a story about. A smile rose to my lips as I hid in the shadows of the ruined castle. It's over. I escaped. A sharp pain suddenly shot through my foot. I was so tense while running for my life that I didn't even notice my ankle had swollen this badly. Wait, a memory that wasn't mine surfaced. If I remembered correctly, the original Alice was supposed to have healing powers, right? A thread of warmth flickered through me, and golden light gathered in my palm. If she could use it, then I should be able to as well. I placed my hand over the swollen joint, and the pain immediately vanished. The swelling faded within seconds. But what followed was a bitter thought. Alice had died because of this very power. She died so miserably because of it. So I have to seal it away, hide it, never let the greedy eyes of this world discover it. The first thing I need to do now is confirm the situation outside, then plan my next move. Carefully, I pulled the hood of my cloak lower and crept toward the collapsed archway. But the moment I peeked out, a voice cut through the night. I knew I hadn't been mistaken. My blood turned ice cold at once. A guard. His face was clearly lit by the firelight, and his spear was pointed straight at me. "This bounty is mine," he declared. "Damn it, this is really bad." My heart pounded wildly in my chest. He grinned viciously, his voice full of threat. "Princess, just come with me quietly. Don't force me to get rough." His filthy hand clamped onto my arm with an iron grip. I glared at him, making no effort to hide my resistance. His face instantly twisted with anger. "You're a princess of a fallen kingdom, and you still dare look at me like that?" he shouted. "Looks like you need to be taught a lesson." He shoved me backward, then thrust his spear straight at me. I threw myself to the side, and the spearhead scraped across the stone where I had just been standing. But my dodge was too clumsy, and in the next second I tripped and crashed hard onto the freezing ground. I looked up and met his predator's eyes. There was no way I could win a fight like this. At least not with this weak body. He looked down at me, a nauseating smile spreading across his face. "Princess," he purred, "it seems you hurt your leg. How about I treat you properly before handing you over to the Crown Prince?" My stomach churned. Do all the male characters in this novel think with nothing but their lower bodies? My fingers groped frantically across the ground, searching for anything that could be used as a weapon. At last, I grabbed hold of a loose, heavy stone. I shrank back, forcing fear into both my voice and my eyes. "Don't come any closer. Take one more step." He only laughed, the sound sharp and cold. "That's not up to you." The instant he lunged at me, I swung the stone with all my strength. A sickening thud rang out as it smashed hard against his skull. Shock filled his eyes, and then his whole body crumpled to the ground like a puppet with its strings cut. I stood over his unconscious body, breathing hard. Arrogant bastard, I thought coldly, even my thoughts edged with frost. That's what happens when you underestimate other people. I didn't waste any time. I immediately crouched down and started searching his pockets. My fingers brushed against a heavy pouch. Gold coins. A victorious smile rose to my lips. This is enough to pay tuition. Next time you see a pretty face, don't lower your guard so quickly. I swept my gaze around. No one else was here. Good. I've already dodged the first death flag. We need to get out of here. Hurry. I had barely stepped into the middle of the road when a thunderous burst of hoofbeats suddenly split the air, and a carriage pulled by enormous black horses came charging out of the darkness. It came straight at me. My eyes flew wide open in sheer terror. No way. I just got here. Am I gonna die again already? What kind of lunatic stands in the middle of the road at night? The horse suddenly reared up so violently it was terrifying, tearing through the night sky, its hooves only inches from my head. I staggered backward, my heart nearly leaping out of my chest. A rush of relief from surviving washed over me. Phew, that was a close call. Then a stern voice came from inside the carriage. Who dares block the Duke's carriage? Can you bear the consequences? My head slipped down, and I looked up to see a man in a monocle glaring down at me. The fury on his face instantly turned into pure shock, his jaw nearly dropping. Good heavens, Princess Alice! In the commotion, my eyes landed on the crest engraved on the carriage door. It was the emblem of the Priska family. Then another voice rang out, smooth and cold as a winter night, cutting through the air. What's all this noise? A man stepped out of the carriage. His long silver hair seemed to glow under the moonlight, and his violet eyes were sharp and utterly without warmth. Friedrich Priska, the current head of the Priska family, and the former duke of my now-fallen kingdom. His name stirred up a memory, a scene from the original story. Alice kneeling in the freezing snow, covered in blood, reaching out to him in despair. Duke Priska, please save me. She had begged him like that once, but he had remained nothing more than a cold spectator. He had stood by and watched her suffer, never once offering a hand. And now he stood before me, just as distant as ever, his presence like a suffocating wall of ice. Those pale violet eyes locked onto me. What business do you have with the Duke? He asked, his tone allowing no room for politeness. I can't show weakness now. I bent my knees slightly and gave him an elegant curtsy. Forcing myself to wear a gentle smile, I spoke softly. My father used to mention you. I never expected we'd meet under such strange circumstances. Perhaps we could find time to catch up? His reply came fast and merciless. Sorry, I don't have time. He turned to get back into the carriage. No, that won't do. I can't let him leave like this. He's a crucial piece on this board. The carriage started moving. Just then, another man approached, carrying an ornate box in his hands. You're leaving in quite a hurry, Duke, he said lightly. I nearly forgot to bring the sash His Highness bestowed upon you. Friedrich didn't even turn his head. His voice was full of contempt. Do me a favor and tell His Highness that the Priska family is unworthy of such an honor. My eyes widened slightly. The tension between them was so thick it could almost be cut with a knife. A bold and dangerous thought flashed through my mind. It seems Friedrich is already sick of being the Crown Prince's lapdog. Maybe I should add fuel to the fire. Duke, I cried out, my voice brimming with desperation. Then I lunged at him and dramatically collapsed at his feet. I pressed a hand to my forehead, pretending to be dizzy. Before he could react, I shamelessly wrapped my arms around his leg and clung to him like my life depended on it. He froze, looking down at me in disbelief. What exactly are you doing? This was my chance. The Crown Prince's man was staring with his eyes wide open. I let tears well up and spoke in a carefully trained, choked voice. I know you're still angry with me, angry that I drugged you before your northern campaign. I sniffled, making sure every word carried clearly. Then came the final blow. I cover my stomach. But I'm carrying your child, Duke. I can't let you. The Crown Prince's man sucked in a sharp breath. Rage flashed through Friedrich's eyes, but then he seemed to understand. He bent down, his lips near my ear, and threatened in a low voice. Keep this up and I'll send him away. By now, the Crown Prince's man was flushed red with embarrassment. Who would have thought that the Duke, famous for his cold-blooded nature, had such a scandalous romantic affair? Friedrich played along flawlessly. He reached out, took my hand, and yanked me up from the ground. Sorry, he said to the dumbfounded messenger, his voice smooth as silk. I need to deal with a private matter first. With that, he dragged me into the carriage, and the door slammed shut. The moment we were fully out of sight, the performance ended at once. His grip on my arm tightened sharply, and those violet eyes turned as cold as ice. You're very good at this sort of thing. Jealous? I wore a faint smile. I did help you get rid of a nuisance, after all. No need to thank me. His jaw tightened. Get out on your own. I don't want to make this bigger than it is. Then he barked an order to the driver. Stop the carriage. The carriage jolted to a halt in the middle of a dark, eerie forest. This was it, my last chance. I met his eyes directly. In a steady voice, I said, "Is this how a great duke repays someone who just saved his life?" He let out a scoffing laugh. Then how exactly do you want me to repay you? My request was simple. Take me back to your estate. His answer was just as simple, and twice as cold. Impossible. He leaned back, unmoved. You're not who you used to be. I won't risk dragging the Priska family into scandal, especially after you just dumped a bucket of filth on my reputation. So no. I leaned forward slightly, a sly, knowing smile rising at my lips. What if I told you I know your secret? His eyes narrowed. I pressed the advantage, lowering my voice into a conspiratorial whisper. Or rather, your family secret? He didn't move, but I caught the flicker in his eyes. What exactly are you trying to say? I delivered the killing blow, each word sharp and precise. Every head of the Priska family dies before the age of 30. I let the words sink into the air. It's divine punishment, isn't it? For the blood spilled through generation after generation. And you, Friedrich Priska, are the newest head of that family. If I remember correctly, you're already 28, aren't you? The air inside the carriage instantly grew heavy and suffocating. I leaned closer still, letting my final offer hang between us. What if I told you I could save you? For the first time, a crack appeared in his icy composure. He looked at me, really looked at me, with emotions raging in his eyes like a storm. On what ground should I believe you? He asked hoarsely. I gave him a confident, unfathomable smile. You can take me home first and verify it yourself. He stared at me, jaw taut. His mind was racing. I could see the calculation in his gaze. He had been cornered. A man with only 2 years left to live had nothing left to lose, yet everything worth gambling for. He had no other choice. Without another word, the carriage started moving again, carrying us deeper into the night toward the ducal estate. A memory from the original story flashed through my mind. This was Friedrich's study after the kingdom had fallen. Crown Prince Lias sat across from him, while Alice stood behind him like a doll. After the kingdom's destruction, Alice had not only become Lias's private plaything, but also his diplomatic bargaining chip. Lias was trying to persuade Friedrich, his voice dripping with false gentleness. Everyone in the empire knows the princess's body can cure any illness in the world. So why insist on being so stubborn? He leaned forward, his smile slowly turning into cruel mockery. Don't you want a healthy body again? Friedrich, now already 30, broke into a violent cough, coughing into his handkerchief. The family curse had clearly tormented him severely. Lias kept pressing, never relenting. The empire still needs a warrior like you. Stop hesitating. But Friedrich's was iron. Your Majesty, he said, his voice weak but firm. The Priska family creed does not permit happiness built upon the suffering of the weak. This is the fate of Friedrich Priska, and I accepted it long ago. Please leave. The original Alice widened her eyes, and a flicker of hope flashed through them. He would rather choose death than use her. Lias sneered. Fine. Very well, Friedrich. You really do have nerve. With that, he turned and left, but before going, he backhanded Alice across the face. His voice was steeped in venom. Useless fool. She was left alone on the floor of the guest room, curled up in the darkness. I closed my eyes and forcibly buried that memory. Were you moved, Alice? Moved by a man who stood by and watched you suffer the whole time? Just because he said a few empty words before dying? That won't do. Letting weak emotions cloud your judgment only leads to destruction. Judging by the timeline, his body should already be showing symptoms of the family curse by now. The original Alice was used by Lias, but passively waiting around like that is unbearable. Better for me to strike first and turn him into someone on her side. A rapid knock at the door jolted me out of my thoughts. Who is it? Friedrich opened the door, his expression grave. Alice, we need to talk. I immediately put on my brightest, most carefree smile. Sorry, I'm not in the mood to talk right now. Then I gave a light hum and slammed the double doors shut right in his face. Outside, the butler looked a little worried. Master, should we send Miss Alice back to the royal palace? Friedrich pinched the bridge of his nose and let out a weary sigh. Forget it. Her father once helped the Priska family. We'll wait a little longer. His voice regained its authority. Clean up every trace and make sure no one knows she came here. The next morning, I saw Friedrich in the dining room. He was drinking his morning tea while reading documents. I walked in, my voice light. Good morning, Duke. He looked up, and those violet eyes widened almost imperceptibly. He was taking in my appearance, a beautiful brand new pink dress, and my hair carefully done. I was no longer a refugee. I was a guest. Breakfast and the estate both look wonderful, I said as I sat down as though it were only natural. Without saying a word, the butler placed something on the table in front of me. It was a wanted notice with my face printed on it. The reward was 1,000 gold coins and a noble title for whoever captured me. My smile froze for only a moment. Then I looked up at Friedrich, my expression full of amused indifference. So? I asked. The corner of Friedrich's mouth slowly lifted into a confident smile that looked just like mine. The game is finally beginning for real, princess. His voice was low, carrying a lazy sort of provocation. Now, are you ready to talk? Alice swirled the dark red wine in her glass, her expression impeccably calm. I thought you'd keep your intentions hidden a little longer. A sly smile played at her lips, but Friedrich's voice cut coldly through the air, sharp as a blade. He mocked her, saying it was nothing less than a naked threat, a reminder of just how dangerous her situation was. He told her that Crown Prince Lias was turning the entire kingdom upside down looking for her, obsessed like a raging fire. And if Friedrich wished it, she would be just like the steak on the plate before him, utterly at his mercy. The threat hung in the air, so heavy it was suffocating. So am I supposed to burst into tears and beg helplessly now? A soft, smiling curve touched her lips. Was she supposed to beg him not to hand her over to that madman, Lias? Friedrich's expression was like a mask carved from stone. His patience was gradually wearing thin. Unhurried, she lifted her teacup, her gaze never wavering. If that's what you want to see from me, Your Grace, then I'm afraid you'll be deeply disappointed. She took an elegant sip, and the sound of the cup being set down was especially clear in the taut silence. That was the last straw. In an instant, he was already on his feet. He lunged forward and seized her chin, forcing her to raise her head. The dining table overturned, and the perfectly cooked steak and potatoes scattered all over the floor. The porcelain plates crashed against the stone ground with a deafening shatter, breaking into countless pieces, just like his surface composure. But Alice didn't even blink. On the contrary, she moved even closer to him, radiating a strange confidence. When her hand gently fell against his chest, his eyes widened in shock. I told you. Her voice was low, like a bewitching whisper. I can save you. Golden light began to radiate from her body, enveloping them both in a sacred glow. Join hands with me. In exchange, I will remove the curse entwined around the Priska family. Friedrich froze where he stood, his thoughts in turmoil. Impossible. His mind rejected it wildly. This curse cannot be cured. Memory came crashing over him. A gray, dim day, a tiny coffin slowly lowered into the earth, a child clutching a bouquet of white lilies, his heart torn apart by a grief too heavy to bear. It was an incurable torment passed down through generations, and it had already taken too many lives. But her voice cleaved through his despair. How will you know if you don't try? She extended her hand to him, an utterly unreserved invitation, as though ethereal flowers bloomed around them. Give me your hand. He hesitated, the hand hanging at his side, clenched into a fist. Was he really so afraid that he wouldn't even try? She lowered her eyes to him, her gaze mingling pity with provocation. So your courage amounts to no more than this. He finally spoke, his voice thick with sarcasm. So your grand plan is to borrow the strength of the Priska family and, together with the new emperor's power, strike back? He sneered. Very clever. Why didn't I think of that? His bright blue eyes were full of suspicion. He turned his head away, refusing to look at her again, but she simply stood there like a beam of light that would never waver. Then he turned back, and his gaze collided with hers. And in that moment, she took a step forward. She gently took his hand. A dazzling holy power exploded from her touch. witch. I will use my divine power, she declared, her voice full of unquestionable authority, to completely purify the curse entwined in the Priska bloodline. From this day onward, the Priska family will be free once more. Friedrich could only stare blankly, his violet eyes wide with disbelief as golden light completely surrounded them. This was Alice Catalitz's sincere heart laid before Friedrich Priska. A few days later, beneath the moonlight, a luxurious carriage stopped in front of the estate. Friedrich stood there waiting, and the butler stepped forward with a knowing smile. "Good evening, master. You seem to be looking much better lately." Friedrich's thoughts drifted back to her proposal, back to that near-impossible power of hers. Very well. He finally made up his mind, and a rare, gentle smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "I accept your offer." The night of the banquet arrived, charged with an ambiguous tension. A woman in a stunning red dress walked toward him. "Have you forgotten me already, Your Grace?" It was Alice, her hair color and eyes both altered by magic. She reminded him that the transformation potion she had given him worked perfectly. She stepped closer again, her new identity becoming the perfect disguise. Friedrich's expression remained stern. Even though they had already agreed to work together, he still warned her, "If you walk into the lion's den of your own accord like this, I can't guarantee I'll bring you out unscathed." He offered her his arm. Protecting one's lady is a gentleman's duty. Without hesitation, she slipped her hand around his arm, and at that instant, her boldness left him completely stunned. This woman, what exactly is she? They walked along the grand long bridge draped in red carpet toward the palace, every bit the striking pair. Whispers instantly rose all around them. The Duke actually brought a female companion? This is big news. Who is she? Which family is she from? She doesn't look familiar. Friedrich lowered his head toward her ear, his voice as light as a murmur. "It looks like you've stolen all the attention tonight." Then he added, "From now on, call me Chungya." She simply replied, "All right." As they stepped into the brilliantly lit ballroom, the promise he had once made echoed in her mind. "Alice, tonight the entire order of knights will answer to you." He had once knelt on one knee before her while the knights behind him swore loyalty alongside him. He had promised that he would wait for her in the safest place in all of Setailo. She clenched her fists, her resolve growing firmer. She would not fail. Suddenly, a cheerful voice drifted through the crowd. "I'm delighted to see you here." The one approaching was Crown Prince Lias. His golden hair and charming smile were nothing but a false outer shell. He slowly descended the stairs. Friedrich and Alice turned together to greet him. The Crown Prince's gaze lingered on them for a moment. A little too long, with a predator's cold gleam flashing in his eyes. Later, as couples spun across the dance floor, Alice leaned slightly closer to Friedrich. "I want to go to the washroom," she said in a low voice. He nodded, his expression unreadable. But as he watched her retreating figure, his mind filled with doubt. How could a princess of a fallen kingdom dare to break into her enemy's palace so boldly? "Alice, what exactly are you plotting?" His eyes narrowed, a dangerous light flashing within them. "I really would like to see what she's planning." He stood up, preparing to follow. Alice quietly stepped out into the cool night air. Her red dress stood out vividly among the moonlit buildings. Someone was watching her, but she didn't care. Her mind was full of the last words her father had left her. The safest place. Could it be there? A memory surfaced, vivid as if it had happened only yesterday. Little Alice held a treasure box in her arms and looked up at her royal father. "Father, why can't I keep the key myself?" His hand gently rested on top of her head. "If you want to wear the crown, you must bear its weight," he told her. "But I'm already amazing, father. Every teacher says I'm excellent." He explained that the royal court was not a classroom, but a forest prowled by wolves. Corrupt people circled like predators, waiting for their sacrifice, while the innocent lambs were raised plump and tender, utterly unaware that the butcher's blade would fall and hungry fangs were coveting them. "I have already paved the road for your future," he said heavily. "If that day truly comes, you must strike back with everything I leave behind for you." "Strike back? What does that mean? Like when we chased butterflies?" The young girl only giggled. The love in his eyes shone with gentle warmth. "You're still too young. You'll understand when you grow up. I do all this because I love you." The memory faded, leaving only bitterness behind. "Your father really did place all his bets on you." she thought, her expression gradually turning cold. What a pity this lamb was slaughtered before she ever grew up. But now I am the hunter, and they are the prey. Her steps quickened, but she was not alone. The men following her looked utterly shocked. The royal family's forbidden altar? Why is she going there? One of them immediately realized how serious the situation was. Hurry back and report to His Highness, he ordered his companion. I'll keep following her. Alice stepped onto the terrace drenched in moonlight. She knew she was not alone. Who's there? She shouted sharply. The guard lunged out of the shadows, but he had clearly gravely underestimated his target. Her figure swayed, and she turned sideways to evade his attack. In one motion, she snatched away his weapon and pressed it against his throat. With skills like this, you think you can fight me? Talk. Who sent you? When he still tried to struggle, she struck cleanly and shut him up. If you don't know how to speak, then keep your mouth shut. In the end, she shot him a contemptuous glance and flung him aside. That's all you've got? Go back and train some more. She turned and left, abandoning him alone on the cold stone floor, sprawled there in miserable defeat. The guard lay on the ground, too stunned to speak. The princess was nowhere near as fragile as he had imagined. He was still trying to process the fact that he had been utterly crushed when a gleaming boot stepped into his field of vision, followed by a hand grabbing his collar. He was yanked violently to his feet. The one who had come was Friedrich himself, his expression terrifyingly dark. I can't let the Priska family get dragged into something this reckless. Meanwhile, Alice had already reached the altar. According to her memories, the first step was a blood verification, and only then could the altar be activated. She muttered softly, cut her finger, and let her blood drip onto the ancient stone surface. Crimson energy flared up at once. The energy spiraled around her body. This should work, right? Suddenly, the ground began to tremble, and part of the stone floor slowly slid open. A hidden staircase leading down into darkness was revealed. She followed it downward and arrived in a vast secret chamber. This was the royal treasury, and standing before her was an ornate life-size stone statue of a dragon. She curled her lips in satisfaction and thought. As expected, the treasures here are on a completely different level. The riddle her royal father had left echoed in her mind, hidden within the gaze of the pearl. Her eyes snapped toward the dragon's head. Then, that means it's here. She reached for the glowing orb in the statue's eye, but no matter what she did, she could not remove it. Clicking her tongue in annoyance, she grabbed a battle axe from a nearby weapon rack, shouted, and swung down with all her strength. The stone dragon's head shattered into countless pieces at once. Amid the rubble lay a huge, dazzling blue gemstone. The key should be in here, right? She bent down to inspect it, triumph gleaming in her eyes. But after examining it carefully, her face fell. It's not here. If the key was not inside the gemstone, then what place could possibly be safer than this? She let out an irritated sigh. Forget it. I've been out too long. I'll come back next time and search thoroughly. She came out of the altar area and headed back toward the palace. Suddenly, a hand shot out from the darkness and clamped around her wrist like iron. What are you doing here? Friedrich demanded in a low, dangerously cold voice. She jerked her arm back. What is it? Is the Duke moonlighting as a detective now, too? He slammed her hard against a stone pillar, cutting off her retreat. Speak. His voice came out rough and low, his face only inches from hers. But she merely smiled, her eyes full of provocation. No comment. Do you know you're playing with fire? He growled, yet she casually looked up at the stars. A duke has a duke's secrets. What? Am I not allowed to keep a few secrets of my own as well, Your Grace? Before he could answer, a voice broke the tension. So this is where you are. Crown Prince Lias and his knight emerged from around the corner. What are you two doing out here? Were the dishes at the banquet not to your liking? The smile on Lias's face was like a predatory crack. Panic surged through Alice's chest. The potion's effect was about to wear off. Her heart pounded violently against her ribs. In that instant, she made a decision. She suddenly reached out, wrapped her arms around Friedrich, and pulled him flush against her. Her lips brushed his ear as she delivered a deadly threat in a whisper. Play along, or I'll kill you. The next second, she instantly began acting, her voice turning loud and seductive, clear enough for Lias to hear every word. Oh, Your Grace, you're so bold. I only came out to take care of a little private matter, and I still want more. She pressed her whole body against his back and wrapped her arms around him as Lias approached step by step. A trace of amusement flashed through the Crown Prince's eyes. Looks like I interrupted your fun. Friedrich had fallen into the trap she had laid and had no choice but to go along with it. He let out a cold snort, his voice icy. Friedrich, you've always had standards higher than the clouds. Corbin, why are you suddenly entangled with this wild girl of unknown origin? I picked her up during my last campaign. Her parents died in the chaos of war. I merely pitied her. Lias's smile deepened, though it never reached his eyes. How interesting. But my informants tell me she went straight to the royal altar area just now. Don't you intend to explain that? Friedrich reached out and drew Alice into his arms. Your Highness is overthinking this. I only brought her here to find a quiet place so this little lecher could have her fill. As if she had been waiting for that line, Alice let out a soft laugh, her fingers lightly tracing his chest. That tickles. Lias's gaze darkened further. If that's the case, then surely you wouldn't mind letting me sample a bit of this northern flavor as well. Judging by the way she looks, she seems quite willing to put on a performance on the spot. The air crackled with silent threats. Alice and Friedrich could only look at each other, trapped inside a lie that was on the verge of spinning completely out of control. That little girl. The Crown Prince's gaze swept over her, filled with disdain. So where was the problem? The problem was that in his eyes, she was still nothing more than an ugly, noisy woman. Nothing more. But when Friedrich turned to leave with her, her expression suddenly hardened with resolve. No, she would not let it end like this. She couldn't. She suddenly reached out and blocked his path. Your Highness, this isn't over yet. Before he could react, both her hands were already cupping his face. Her movements were unexpectedly forceful, leaving him no choice but to meet her gaze. Her voice was low and commanding. Friedrich, look at me. Then, in a move that completely tore apart the palace banquet's pretense of decorum, she yanked him down and smashed her lips hard against his. The entire hall fell silent in an instant. Her hand slid downward, seized his hand, and pressed it heavily against her waist. Her whisper burned against his lips, meant for his ears alone. Look at me. Don't resist. We're only acting. His eyes flew wide open, shock and confusion colliding within them. What on earth was she doing? As she kissed him under the gaze of everyone present, her fingers tightened even more fiercely in his clothes. She pulled him so close, it was almost impossible to get any closer. Nestling into his arms, she wore a dazzling, victorious smile at the corner of her lips. You're doing so well, darling, she murmured sweetly, her voice like an enticing melody as her body pressed tightly against his. Then the next words she spoke directly into his ear made his whole body go rigid. Wow, you're really something down there. Every muscle in his body tensed instantly. Had she lost her mind? She merely giggled, mischief glittering in her eyes. Don't worry. Her lips brushed lightly over his earlobe. There's more you'll like even better next. Meanwhile, the Crown Prince's attendant shifted uncomfortably. Your Highness, he reminded softly, what may happen next is probably not suitable for public viewing. Please at least leave some dignity to the Priska family. But Lias only watched the scene, a slow predatory smile spreading across his face. Since you put it that way, how could I refuse? Yet his thoughts were far less polite. A woman with no background, like her, had no business appearing in the palace again in the future. Friedrich finally pulled away, his face cold and indifferent. He gave the Crown Prince a slight bow. I will bear your Highness's advice in mind. After the two of them turned and left, the gentle smile on Lias's face vanished at once, replaced by a sinister gaze. He turned to his attendant, his voice low and sharp. Should we continue watching the Priska family? The attendant nodded. Keep watching them. After returning to the Priska estate, the tension of the whole night finally eased a little. Alice took a small sip of tea and let out a satisfied sigh. How refreshing. She leaned lazily against the back of her chair, savoring the afterglow of her small victory. But her peace did not last long before Friedrich's voice cut through the room. Cold as frost. Miss Alice, there is something you must understand. In the future, when we are outside, especially in situations like that, do not touch me that way. She wore a look of sincere confusion. Why not? His expression darkened alarmingly. Because I do not like it. And besides, as a princess, you ought to carry yourself with more dignity. She stared at him, stunned for a moment, her lips even parting slightly. The next second, she burst into laughter, bright and uninhibited, echoing through the quiet room. No way. you're actually that old-fashioned? Her lips curled, danger flashing in her eyes. The one who should be complaining is obviously me, not you, Your Grace. The victim hasn't said a word, yet the one who took full advantage is already laying down rules. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. Don't forget who started all this. If you hadn't barged into the sacred forest on your own, we wouldn't be in this mess now. Her smile deepened. Oh, so the Duke scares that easily? Her fingers lightly brushed across his hand. The touch was faint and teasing, deliberately provocative. What about this? His breathing hitched. The smile on her face was wicked, almost demonic. Don't tell me, Your Grace. You think I've tainted your chastity? As if burned, he jerked his hand back, his voice trembling slightly with anger. Enough, Miss Alice. I'm not your toy. She widened her eyes with feigned innocence. Such a big reaction? Don't tell me. You're still a virgin? I never expected you to be this pure, Your Grace. It's actually kind of adorable. He was left completely speechless. What exactly are you? She suddenly cut him off. The joking expression from before vanished instantly, replaced by something dark and intense. What exactly am I? Before the words had even fully fallen, she shoved him hard. He staggered backward and landed on the bed with a thud. While he was still stunned, she sneered. When you wake up, are you going to say I hugged you again? Forget it. She waved her hand impatiently. Late that night, Friedrich lay unconscious, his breathing weak. Physician Thomas stood beside him, his face grave. How was the master? The butler asked anxiously. As the old man wiped his glasses, he shook his head. This is not a physical problem. I think the curse has already begun to flare up. The Duke is already 28 years old. If we still cannot find a way to break it. His words stopped there, the unspoken rest hanging heavily in the air. He probably did not have much time left. We've already done everything we could. The physician sighed, his shoulders slumping helplessly. All that remains is to leave it to fate. Outside the door, hidden in the shadows, Alice listened silently, her heart hammering in her chest. Just then, a low groan pulled her thoughts back. Friedrich had awakened. Sensing an unusual weight on the bed, he slowly opened his eyes. Something seemed to be moving under the blanket. What? He suddenly threw the blanket aside and roared angrily. Alice! Who allowed you on my bed? A head of golden hair poked out from beneath the covers, followed by an extremely radiant, smiling face. Surprised? She chirped. Trembling, he raised a hand and pointed toward the door. Get out. You should not be here. She only stretched lazily and let out an exaggerated yawn. I wasn't planning to fall asleep, but you were unconscious for too long. He sat up, teeth clenched. Your Highness, please return to your own room. She puffed out her lips, her eyes wide and innocent. Haven't we already slept together once? Don't be so cold. She edged closer, the distance between them shrinking again and again, until she was nearly leaning over him and her expression suddenly turned serious. The next second, she smoothly swung herself onto his lap, pressed both hands onto his shoulders, and stared straight into his eyes. Besides, she said in a low voice, so soft it sent chills down the spine, I came here to save your life. Are you sure you don't want to keep me by your side? He froze completely. What? She closed her eyes and began chanting a spell, a gentle radiance spilling out from within her. O most exalted God, I beseech you, grant me the power to heal suffering. A sphere of deep blue and violet energy intertwined and formed in her palm. Let lost souls find hope again. Friedrich's eyes widened in disbelief. What kind of power was this? That light slowly enveloped him, warm and gentle, and he could clearly feel a dark, icy energy being drawn little by little out from the depths of his soul. Countless images flooded his mind. He saw her in a white dress, radiant beyond compare, that face like an angel reflected in his pupils. He saw her kneeling at a coronation ceremony. The high priest placed a crown on her head with his own hands as the people erupted in cheers. He heard whispers among the crowd and finally confirmed that the rumors were true. She was the saint. So this was her power. The blue light gradually faded, and he could only tilt his head up to look at her, his breathing unsteady. She snapped her fingers before his eyes. Back to your senses? Don't tell me I scared you, stupid. He swallowed with difficulty, his voice so soft it was almost inaudible. No, I was simply overwhelmed by your power. He slowly stood, his thoughts surging chaotically, then gave her a solemn, deep bow. "Thank you very much, Princess Alice." But in the next moment, he suddenly stopped. "Wait." He raised his head, those violet eyes staring straight into hers. "What is it?" she asked. "Your Grace, are you truly prepared to stand on my side?" A heavy silence settled over the room. "We now share a secret," she said calmly. "You now know my hidden identity as the Saint." Her gaze turned instantly cold as a blade. "If this ever gets out, I will kill you with my own hands. I won't hesitate." Without the slightest pause, Friedrich placed his hand over his heart, his eyes unwavering. "I, Friedrich Priska, swear upon my life and my name. If I should one day betray Alice Patrick, may I suffer eternal torment for lifetime after lifetime." The coldness on her face softened slightly into something harder to read. "That's all? Just not betraying me? You know that isn't all I want." "Then say it." A faint smile of understanding appeared at the corner of her lips. What he had spoken aloud was no longer merely an alliance, but an oath of loyalty. From this moment on, his life was bound to hers. "The next time your curse flares up," she said, her tone turning businesslike again as she stood by the window, "there may not be anyone by your side to save you." She turned to look at him, challenge glinting in her eyes. "But I believe you can endure it, can't you, Your Grace?" He met her gaze, the resolve in his eyes solidifying little by little. Just as she reached for the door, he stopped her with a clear, steady voice. "I give you my word, Princess Alice." She smiled. "You're very smart." She clapped her hands, looking once more like that high-spirited princess. "Pleasure working with you, Friedrich." She extended her hand toward him. "From now on, we advance and retreat together." He clasped her hand. Thus, the pact between them was formed. "Likewise, Your Highness." But the moment the door closed softly behind her, the princess's mask of confidence collapsed instantly. She leaned weakly against the cold wooden door, trembling all over. Lowering her head, she looked at her shaking hands. A wave of exhaustion washed over her. "I thought this power had no limit," she murmured to the empty corridor as she slowly slid down to sit on the floor. "Looks like the backlash depends on the severity of the injury." A tired yet resolute smile rose to her lips. "At least I fooled Friedrich. Now my plan can finally keep moving." She reached up and brushed aside her long golden hair. Her mind was already calculating at full speed. Later, lying in bed, she stared into the darkness and thought, if I want to turn this hopelessly unfavorable situation around, I need allies, I need power, and I need to be ruthless enough. Meanwhile, Crown Prince Lias was also lost in his own thoughts. That Friedrich Priska really is a hard bone to chew. That was what he was thinking to himself. She had actually managed to avoid the disastrous opening from the original plot, but this new road was full of unknowns. This version of Lias was probably not going to be as easy to deal with as the one in her memory. She knew she had to avoid those so-called male leads. But her top priority at the moment was very clear. She had to find a command seal. She closed her eyes as her thoughts surged. The gaze of the pearl. Where exactly could it be? In a daze, a happy memory suddenly surfaced. The young Alice sat on a swing laughing while her royal father gently pushed her from behind. He had once been a very good man, but that sweet memory was violently torn apart the next second by another, much darker scene. On a filthy floor lay the shattered picture frame. A man, reeking of alcohol and burning with rage, roared, "You filthy bitch! Do you think you're better than me?" The sound of a bottle striking flesh rang out sharply. A woman cried and begged, "No, please. Please stop hitting me." Then came the monster's final howl. "It's all your fault, die." In the darkness echoed the terrified cries of a little girl. "Mom!" Alice jolted upright in bed. She gasped for breath, her heart pounding as though it would smash through her chest. "Even after reincarnating, I still have dreams like this. So damn annoying." She collapsed heavily back into the pillow, trying to shake that fear from her mind. In his own room, Friedrich stood shirtless by the window, moonlight illuminating the crisscrossing vicious scars on his back. He picked up a small bottle of medicine and carefully applied it to the fresh wound on his chest. The pain in his eyes seemed to come less from his body than from something much deeper. He slowly dressed himself, each movement heavy, as if his shoulders were weighed down by burdens he could not speak of. A few days later, Friedrich was once again forced to receive the Crown Prince's attendant. "His Highness hopes that you can join the Royal Knights." and serve as the new commander. The attendant was all smiles, his exaggerated manner and glittering jewels practically dazzling the eye. Friedrich slowly took a sip of tea, preparing to refuse politely but firmly. "My apologies, A trace of impatience flashed through his eyes. But before he could finish, a pair of delicate shoes entered his field of vision. He looked up and saw Alice standing behind the attendant. She wore a dangerously sweet smile and silently mouthed to him, "Agree." Their gazes collided in the air like a silent struggle. She tilted her head slightly, and her smile took on a more threatening note. Friedrich sighed inwardly, then turned to the beaming attendant. "Friedrich is deeply grateful for His Highness Lias's generous offer. I will consider it carefully. Please grant me a few more days." After the attendant withdrew in high spirits, Friedrich's expression darkened immediately. With obvious disgust, he jerked his chin at the treasure chest. "Throw this pile of trash out." But just as the butler stepped forward to do so, Alice got there first. "That's a lot of money." She smiled brightly as she casually picked up the chest. "If you don't want it, I'll take it." Friedrich stared at her, his jaw tight. "That position," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Is it the first step in your plan, Your Highness?" Her cool, slender fingers brushed faintly over the pulse beating at the side of his neck, a wicked glint flashing through her eyes. Her voice was as soft as silk, yet it sliced easily through the quiet room. "Your Grace," she called softly, "you really don't know how to hide your emotions at all, do you?" Friedrich clenched his teeth, the muscles in his cheeks taut as he stared straight ahead, refusing to meet her eyes. This woman, this infuriating, unpredictable woman, why was she always able to throw his mind into chaos so easily? With lofty understanding, Alice continued to press him step by step. "You know very well what kind of man Lias is. His ambition was a flame that would never go out." At last, cracks appeared in Friedrich's composure. He spun around sharply, cold fury burning in his eyes. "Your Highness." When he spoke the title, his voice was full of accusation. "You are gambling with Setelo's future." But Chunya only smiled, her face calm and knowing. Her words were razor-sharp, each one like a dart thrown straight at the mark. "You just don't want your family dragged into war again, do you?" The question hung heavily in the air, so oppressive it was hard to breathe. "Then what about the oath you swore back then?" She pressed on, mockery in her voice. "Or is all that just empty talk? Is this the so-called honor of the great Priska family?" Her final remark dripped with scorn. "From where I stand, it's nothing impressive." The insult struck dead center. A flash of pure, undisguised anger crossed Friedrich's face. His violet eye widened in disbelief, and even the bandage over his other eye seemed to tighten, as if sharply reminding him that what she was trampling on was the honor he valued more than his life. He trembled slightly. The fire in his eyes died down to ash, and then he looked away. "Your Highness, I'm sorry," he muttered hoarsely. "That isn't what I meant." Countless unbearable memories crashed over him like a storm, and once more the smell of blood and the screams of the dying flooded his senses. It was as if he could see himself again, blood-soaked and broken, collapsed on a battlefield piled high with the corpses of his comrades. "Please believe me," he said, his voice carrying a pain she could never understand. "A promise made by the Priska family is never broken." Chunya's expression softened slightly, and for a brief moment their cat-and-mouse game came to a halt, leaving only clear-headed calm behind. "Just as you said." She met his gaze. "We're allies now. We're on the same side. Since I'm going to join the Royal Knights, I need to know what you're really planning." She took a step forward, lowering her voice. "Or rather, what exactly is our real plan?" Her question sounded more like a command, and he knew it. Then she motioned for him to look at a small box. "You remember Sasha, of course." Of course he did. They were a powerful, noble house, or at least that was how the world saw them. Chunya opened the box, revealing it full of glittering jewels. "But they're more like the royal family shadow," she explained. "They once managed the crown's private assets." Her words pulled back a curtain, letting him glimpse a world he had never known. Friedrich's attention was drawn to an ornate ring, its setting inset with 3 dazzling green gemstones whose light reflected in his eyes. "I need certain forces to handle some sensitive matters for me," Chunya said, ambition gleaming in her eyes. "And you're one of them." The thought turned bitter on his tongue. "A pawn?" he asked flatly. "Yes and no," she answered, delicately pinching the ring between her slender fingers. Not everything can be done in broad daylight, especially not with my current status. She sat down and elegantly crossed her legs, the pose both alluring and dangerous. Friedrich stared at her, emotions churning in his chest like a storm. In the end, he sat down in the chair opposite her as well. The soft velvet cushion did nothing to ease his tension. He let out a helpless sigh. "Go on," he said heavily. "I am listening." She narrowed her eyes, focused. "I need to retrieve something from the royal palace. I don't know its exact location, so I'll need to scout first." Friedrich found it. "So my task is to help you find it?" She lifted her teacup and took a light sip. A faint, disdainful smile brushed her lips. "No," she said shortly. "That's a royal secret. I'll find it myself." Friedrich was momentarily speechless, his mouth parting slightly. "There's only one thing you need to do," she continued, her voice sweet enough to be almost bewitching as she leaned slightly toward him. "Get them to officially assign me as your guard knight." Her smile grew brighter, beautifully radiant and dangerously sly. "That's not too much to ask, is it? Someone as capable as you can definitely make it happen." She blinked at him, and it was as if a star flashed at the corner of her eye. Friedrich could only stare in dumbfounded silence as she walked away. "That woman," he groaned inwardly. "She really knows how to shove me straight into the fire." A few days later, in the Grand Hall, Lias Cameron tapped the armrest of the golden throne with obvious impatience. "Why isn't Friedrich here yet?" he muttered. The attendant bowed deeply. "Your Highness, the Duke is already on his way." Just then, a door was pushed open. Friedrich walked in, as stern as ever. At his side was a woman with silver hair tied high in a ponytail. Lias's impatient frown instantly turned into a warm smile. "Friedrich, you finally arrived. No need to be so stiff." He beckoned him forward, but Friedrich remained standing perfectly straight. "Etiquette never goes out of fashion, Your Highness," he replied coldly. The Crown Prince seemed amused by the answer, and an unreadable glint flickered in his eyes. "I thought you might not truly accept the position," he said in a light tone. "With you joining us, the kingdom's military strength is greater than ever." Friedrich gave a stiff bow. "You flatter me. It is my honor to serve the kingdom." Lias smiled with obvious satisfaction. Then his gaze fell on the unfamiliar woman standing silently behind the Duke. "The woman behind you," he said thoughtfully. "I don't recognize her. She is a distant relative of mine, and also my guard knight, Anna," Friedrich explained smoothly, placing a hand on her shoulder. Anna lowered her head respectfully in greeting. "Your Highness, raise your head," Lias ordered. The moment she lifted her eyes, her stomach clenched. Had he noticed something? After drinking the transformation potion, this man was still the most cunning male lead of them all. Even the slightest disturbance would not escape him. Lias stared at her for a long while before finally shifting his attention back to Friedrich. Friedrich bowed once more. "I will not disappoint you," he said, his voice steady and firm. As they turned to leave, Lias watched their retreating backs. A predator's smile slowly spread across his face, and the look in his eyes was chilling. Outside the hall, they walked through a royal restricted zone. The air was thick with tension. Guards in gleaming armor lined both sides of the path, their mere presence a silent warning. Chungya, now Anna, took in every detail, her mind racing. The two of them made their way all the way to the royal altar. It was a magnificent structure, with even more soldiers standing guard around it. "The royal altar is now under high alert," Friedrich explained in a low voice. "It's being guarded by the royal elite." The guards immediately straightened and saluted with crisp precision. "Yes, sir," they shouted in unison. "Damn Lias." She narrowed her eyes and cursed inwardly. "He's fast. He already stationed guards here. I'll have to find a way to lure them off." Just then, a royal carriage arrived with solemn grandeur, breaking the silence. The carriage stopped at the palace entrance, and one of the guards hurried forward, loudly ordering everyone to make way. "Her Highness Princess Lilith has arrived." The guards crossed their spears, blocking Friedrich's path. Lilith Mishuka, Lias's fiancée. Her heart lurched. Wasn't she supposed to appear 2 years later? Why had she come this early? A beautiful woman in a glittering gown stepped slowly down from the carriage, the tiara in her hair shining brilliantly. The instant Chungya saw her, a ghostly chill ran down her spine, dragging up a memory she had desperately wanted to bury. In that memory, everything was bitterly cold. She was kneeling on the ground while the tip of Lilith's shoe pressed hard against her chin, forcing her to raise her head. "So you're Alice?" Lilith's voice was like a poison whisper. "The so-called jewel princess of Setilo. Is this unimpressive?" A vicious kick sent her sprawling to the floor, her body trembling with the pain of humiliation. Lilith looked down at her from above, her eyes full of cruel contempt. "I'm warning you, little toy, don't you dare covet things you have no right to covet." Her foot came down hard on Alice's back, pinning her against the icy stone floor. "Did you hear me? Answer." All she managed was a broken whisper. "That I understand." Lilith let out a scornful laugh and turned away, saying to her maid in disgust, "Clean this place with incense. It reeks like trash." She left the original Alice there, just like that, lying on a luxurious carpet like something discarded. Back in the present, Anna watched Lilith move forward surrounded by guards. A dangerous smile slowly curled her lips. "Maybe I can use this chance to get a little revenge for the original me. Wow, I really am a good person." Friedrich noticed her expression and took a slight step back. "That expression of yours is disgusting." The comment in her head was a sharp contrast to the lightness in her outward tone. "You go on ahead. Don't forget what your current identity is. Go back and continue patrolling." She clicked her tongue and turned away, refusing to look at him. "So this is how you treat the person who saved your life?" Cold-hearted indeed. Inside the palace, Lias greeted his fiancée. "Lilith, it's been a long time," he said with a smile that did not quite reach his eyes. "You must be tired from your journey. Go and rest in the room prepared for you first." But Lilith clung tightly to his arm. "No, you haven't come to see me in so long. I want to stay with you a little longer." His expression turned awkward as he tried to pull his arm back. "I still have official business to handle." Just then, an attendant spoke up at the perfect moment. "Your Highness, there is news from the restricted zone." Lias immediately seized the opportunity. "My apologies, Lilith. I need to deal with something first. I'll come see you later." At the same time, Anna began carrying out her own plan. A guard approached her and relayed an order for her to return to the palace and report in, but Anna did not budge. "His Highness ordered us to guard the restricted zone," she countered calmly. "Princess Lilith is His Highness's fiancée. If something happens to her, will you take responsibility?" The guard hesitated at once, and she pressed the advantage. "Do you understand?" In the end, he had no choice but to yield. "Understood. We'll head over immediately." As she watched them depart in formation, Anna smiled to herself. "Sorry, Friedrich. I'll be borrowing your name for a bit. Now it's time to summon the magic circle." Just then, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Who's there?" Her blood instantly ran cold. She spun around and saw Crown Prince Lias and his attendants walking toward her. Why'd he suddenly come here? Her mind raced, and she immediately dropped to one knee. "Knight Anna greets your Highness, the Crown Prince." Lias looked at her in puzzlement. At a time like this, shouldn't Anna be on patrol? "What are you doing here?" She instantly gave the lie she had prepared in advance. "I heard that your fiancé would be arriving today, and I was concerned about security, so I redeployed all our forces to the palace side. But that left the restricted zone unguarded, so I personally came to patrol." His expression revealed neither pleasure nor anger. "You are cautious. I'll give you that," he said. "But to personally patrol all the way inside the restricted zone." He bent closer, his voice low as a whisper. "You don't look afraid at all. That's rather interesting. Do you know? Trespassing in a restricted zone is punishable by death." She immediately put on a frightened look, her voice trembling slightly. "Your Highness, please don't kill me. To make up for my ignorance, I'll do anything you ask." At last, a trace of a smile appeared on his lips. "Then become my personal knight. Let me see just how sincere you are." And of all times, Friedrich appeared right then. Perfect timing, Lias thought, his smile deepening. "I was just about to appoint Knight Anna as my personal guard." Friedrich immediately stepped forward, his expression grave. "Your Highness, to receive your favor would be Anna's greatest honor. However, your fiancée, Princess Lilith, has already arrived at the palace, and since Anna is a female knight, I fear her Highness may misunderstand." Lias gave a light laugh. "You make a fair point. Lilith is a little jealous, after all." "Very well." His eyes gleamed. "Then I'll appoint Anna as your royal guard instead. That way she can protect you, and there won't be any unnecessary misunderstandings with Princess Lilith." "Not a bad idea." Report to the royal palace tomorrow night, Anna. I have high expectations for you. Then he shot Friedrich a meaningful look. Listen, Friedrich, I'm only letting this go because she's your distant relative. You'd better not be the one who ruins things. Friedrich could only lower his head and comply. Yes, your highness. After Lias left, only the two of them remained by the still palace waters. The last of Friedrich's restraint finally snapped. He turned to glare at her and said through suppressed anger, "You were too reckless." She only gave him an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry. I just wanted to find a token as quickly as possible." He let out a long, weary sigh. "What's done is done. Nothing we say now will change it. When we get back, I'll give you some documents. Read them first, then we'll talk." Late that night, after returning to her room, Chunye threw herself onto the bed, every muscle in her body screaming with exhaustion. I'm dead tired." She stared up at the bed curtains, her heart still pounding hard in her chest. Today had been far too dangerous. She had almost been exposed. If Friedrich hadn't shown up in time, it would have been over. So being transmigrated into a novel wasn't as wonderful as she had imagined. The world seemed to spin before her eyes, as if her whole body were sinking into pitch-black water, the violent sensation of falling swallowing her senses. Someone was calling her name softly. Qingjia. She saw herself standing before a tall, ornate mirror, but the face reflected in it was not her own. It was a girl with the same blonde hair, but her eyes were filled with fear and anger. It was the original Alice. Alice. Qingjia murmuret in shock. The reflection in the mirror moved its lips, and a furious voice echoed out. "What exactly have you done? You made a complete mess of everything. You have no grace whatsoever." Chunye stared blankly at the mirror, her face full of confusion. Me? She thought, bewildered. "Do you even know what's happening right now? You were the one who summoned me." The original Alice crossed her arms, her expression as dark as the sky before a storm. If you don't want to clean up this mess, then send me back." Chunye was about to speak again, but the spirit interrupted her. "If you still want revenge, then listen to me. Also, I know where Father hid the command seal." A fragment of memory flashed before Qingye's eyes, a man's profile. "Where is it?" She pressed, moving closer to the mirror. The original Alice looked back at her, dazed, as if in the next second she would reveal a secret capable of changing everything. But at that very moment, a blinding white light suddenly tore through the darkness of her dream. The light was as bright as looking directly at the sun. A woman's voice echoed in her mind, describing that place as the brightest place in the world. But in the next instant, the light abruptly receded, leaving only darkness thick as ink in her hazy consciousness. She jerked her eyes open, sucked in a sharp breath, and shot upright in bed. Her heart slammed against her ribs. That dream, it was just a mass of light, and then nothing. A bitter taste rose in her mouth. Damn it, that woman actually played me. A soft knock came at the door, and a maid's voice reminded her to come downstairs. She let out a helpless sigh, rolled out of bed, and her mind began racing once more. Downstairs, the air was so heavy it was almost suffocating. The Duke sat at the head of the long table, his expression as cold and merciless as a winter morning. His voice pierced the silence, sharp and reproachful, demanding to know why she had appeared so late and reminding her that a soldier ought to have a sense of time and discipline. But Chunye merely lifted her fork, and a composed smile slowly curved her lips. That soldier, she thought, was long gone. The one sitting here now was Alice. She met his icy gaze, a sly smile in her eyes. "A lady needs her beauty sleep, doesn't she? Surely your grace wouldn't want people gossiping about your dear younger sister." His violet eyes narrowed slightly, and a flash of irritation crossed his face. For an instant, a memory skimmed through her mind. The cold gleam of armor, the weight of a royal scepter. It was a past she desperately wanted to escape. She shook off the thought and returned her attention to the food before her. The crisp sound of fork against porcelain became the only noise between them. The Duke looked at her, confusion rising on his face, as though he could not understand why she had suddenly drifted off into a world of her own. He called her name and asked whether she was listening at all. She blinked, and in an instant the bright mask was back in place as she answered with a smile. He then brought up Crown Prince Lias and warned her that he was not someone easy to deal with. They had to be careful. With that said, he ended breakfast, rose to his feet, and announced that he would wait for her in the carriage. She watched him leave, and the smile slowly faded from her face. "We are working together, yes, but I can't abandon my family because of that." Her gaze gradually hardened with resolve. "If things truly come to that point, then I won't have any other choice." In her mind flashed the image of a swirling vial of magic potion, her final resort, the one she least wanted to use. At the same time, in the royal palace, Crown Prince Lias lounged lazily on his throne, exuding the noble air of someone bored beyond measure. One of his subordinates knelt before him to deliver a report. His elder brothers were still busy fighting each other and posed no threat. And what about Saintess? The man stammered that there were still no new leads. The Crown Prince's boredom instantly turned into irritation. TCH. He clicked his tongue impatiently, contempt flashing through his emerald green eyes. They couldn't even handle something this simple. She's nothing but a fallen princess, he sneered. How far could she possibly run? His gaze settled on the wanted poster on the table, which bore the portrait of a blonde beauty. Princess Alice. Lias leaned forward slightly, and an inexplicable sense of familiarity suddenly rose within him. Those eyes, they looked far too familiar. Just then, a clear voice announced a visitor. A silver-haired woman in a neat blue knight's uniform stood at the doorway and introduced herself as Knight Anna, newly assigned to serve as a guard in Crown Prince Lias's palace. The guard seemed to have been informed in advance and immediately let her in. Her heeled boots struck the floor with crisp clicks that echoed through the hall. She approached the throne and respectfully greeted His Highness. Lias looked up, and the moment their gazes met, that sense of familiarity surged back, stronger than before. It's her. That strange feeling of recognition was coming from her. The wanted poster lay on the table between them, like a silent accusation. Anna's heart jolted. Why is he staring at me like that? The Crown Prince's voice was low and unquestionable as he ordered everyone else to leave. Anna secretly steeled herself. No matter what happened next, she would have to face it. He rose from the throne and slowly walked toward her. At last he stopped so close that there was barely any distance between them, his voice like a tempting whisper. Has anyone ever told you that your eyes are beautiful? He leaned even closer, his gaze burning. They look just like sapphires. Her mind spun rapidly. He's testing me. Still calm, she returned a polite smile and smoothly delivered the lie she had prepared long ago. She explained that her mother came from the northern Gusty tribe, where most people had blue eyes. Following that logic, she asked with a smile, then wouldn't the Gusty plains be full of sapphires? Her quick wit amused him. All right, he said, a hint of provocation in his voice. Then teach me something. She smiled, a glint flashing through her eyes, and then spoke a sentence in a foreign language, telling him that it meant, because you're the king of this world, it is my honor to serve a being as wise and powerful as you. He suddenly burst into loud laughter, clearly delighted by the flattery. Was this man really fishing for praise from Anna? She barely managed to suppress the urge to roll her eyes, though the trace of mockery at the corner of her lips vanished in an instant. If that is truly the case, Lias said, his tone shifting as he returned to business, then I have a task for you. He motioned for her to open the scroll in her hands. She obeyed, but all the blood in her body seemed to turn cold at once. It was a wanted notice for Princess Alice. The face in the portrait was her own. Your task, the Crown Prince said, is to find her. He leaned down close, his finger lightly brushing along the side of her face, as if deliberately pointing out the resemblance between them. Look, even your eye color is equally mesmerizing. It is this night's honor to ease your highness's burdens. Her voice remained steady, but inside, a storm was raging. He suddenly seized her chin and forced her to lift her face to his. The smile had vanished, replaced by a chilling sharpness. Good, he said in a low voice. Do not disappoint me. Then he bent to her ear and delivered one last spine-chilling threat. Otherwise, it would be such a pity if those pretty eyes of yours could never see again. The meaning could not have been clearer. If she failed, she would be blinded. She did not shrink back. Yes, your highness. Her voice was as hard as steel. I will not disappoint you. He released her, turned away, and waved a hand for her to leave. She bowed, turned, and left the throne room, though her legs felt as weak as if she were walking on cotton. The heavy doors slowly closed behind her. Outside the doors, Friedrich Priska was waiting patiently. She walked past him, every step unbearably heavy. Only after she had gone far enough to feel safe did she finally stop. With no one around, the mask she had forced herself to wear shattered instantly. She clutched at her chest, her fingers turning white from gripping her uniform so tightly. That disgusting bastard. How dare he threaten her like that? Blazing fury nearly swallowed her whole. I want to get back at him right now. A burning fire blazed in her eyes, but she still forced the anger down, her fists clenched tight at her sides. Now is not the time. Later. After that, she was patrolling the gardens of the imperial palace with 2 guards following behind her. They reminded her to stay especially alert because Princess Lilith of the Astia Empire was now staying in the palace. As if in answer to those words, a shrill female voice suddenly tore through the stillness of the afternoon. "Didn't I tell you to stay away from here?" Anna turned toward the sound and saw Princess Lilith herself by the fountain, arrogantly bullying a much younger girl. Her again. Anna sighed inwardly. Who was she targeted this time? The girl on the ground was named Angelina, and she was also a princess. Her face was streaked with tears as she kept insisting it was all just a misunderstanding. But Lilith had no intention of letting it go. Cruel words poured from her one after another as she mocked Angelina's low-born mother and insulted her filthy bloodline. Angelina swore she had no feelings whatsoever for Crown Prince Lias, and even repeatedly promised that she would never get in her sister's way. Watching from the side, Anna felt a strange stab of pain in her chest. This name, she wasn't in a novel. Had the rival changed the plot? Was she an enemy or an ally? Lilith's viciousness only grew worse. Is that so? Then jump into the lake. If you really jump, I'll believe you're innocent. Angelina stared at the freezing lake, trembling all over in terror. When she hesitated and did not move, Lilith ordered her maid to do it. The maid grabbed the terrified princess and, with a vicious shove, pushed her straight into the lake. Angelina screamed and struggled in the water, flailing desperately and crying out to her sister for help. Lilith merely watched with cold eyes, a cruel satisfaction even appearing on her face. "You may as well die already," she muttered. Anna could not watch any longer. Just as Angelina's hand was about to sink beneath the surface, Anna dashed forward and, without hesitation, hurled herself into the ice-cold lake. The cold instantly wrapped around her whole body, and a terrifying thought flashed through her mind. Would she turn back into her original appearance in the water? But she forcibly suppressed her fear, grabbed the drowning princess, and pulled her above the surface. The two of them burst out of the water, coughing violently and gasping for breath. Angelina clung tightly to her and weakly whispered her thanks. But their ordeal was not over. On the shore, Lilith was already shrieking in rage. "What are you supposed to be interfering like this?" She screamed hysterically. Soaked through, Anna still stood perfectly straight and met her gaze without yielding an inch. "Princess," her tone was firm, "it is a knight's duty to protect the people." A vicious sneer twisted Lilith's face. "Don't think this is the end of it. What would it take to calm your highness's anger?" Anna asked, her patience nearly exhausted. Lilith's smile deepened. "You can die in her place." Angelina sucked in a horrified breath, but Anna did not even blink. "I'm afraid that will be difficult," she replied coolly. "A royal knight answers only to Crown Prince Lias Cameron." The mocking remark struck exactly where it hurt, and Lilith's face instantly twisted with rage. At that moment, a calm voice broke the taut silence. "Princess, now is not the time to stir up trouble." Lias had arrived, with Friedrich Priska standing beside him. Lilith's anger vanished at once, replaced by false tears. She rushed to Lias, clinging tightly to his arm as she tearfully complained about how a mere knight had offended her, the future crown princess. "What exactly is going on here?" Friedrich Priska was completely baffled. The crown prince, on the other hand, seemed rather intrigued by the chaos. With one arm around the princess, he fixed his gaze on Anna, his eyes gleaming with sly, dangerous amusement. "Causing trouble on your very first day, officially on duty, HM?" he said softly, the corners of his lips slowly curving upward. Then he turned to Friedrich Priska, his tone sounding casual. "If a knight neglects her duty, how should she be punished?" The crown prince's voice was as smooth and cold as polished marble, effortlessly slicing through the stagnant air. He cast his gaze toward the stern-faced Friedrich Priska and asked, with a terrifying casualness, "What punishment should a criminal knight receive?" Angelina's heart leaped straight in her throat. Her breathing stopped, and her eyes filled with terror. Punished? Because of her? No, this should not be happening. Beside her, Anna stood ramrod straight, one hand resting on the hilt of her sword, her eyes as cold and resolute as winter ice. In a low, steady voice, Friedrich Priska answered, "It depends entirely on the severity of the crime." He explained that the punishment would differ accordingly. For a minor offense, a fine or confiscation of one's fief would suffice. But for an extremely grave crime, his words painted a bloody image. The offender would be hung upon a cross soaked in blood. They would be left there to suffer until they truly repented. But who could endure such agony? He added calmly, most people only die there in the end. That is the fate of those who do not know their place. Princess Lilith's lips curled into a malicious smile as she shot Anna a venomous look. The next time you dare talk back, you'd better think first about how many lives you have. Angelina could remain silent no longer. Though her voice trembled, it still rang out with resolve. Sister, that's not true, she cried, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. The truth is, it was clearly you. Fury exploded in Lilith's eyes. Had the stupid girl gone mad? How dare she? In an instant, Lilith shot out her hand and clamped it around Angelina's wrist like an eagle's talon. What nonsense are you spouting? She snapped. Are you accusing your own sister of making up lies? She bent down, lowering her voice so only Angelina could hear. Go on, then, she threatened. Unless you don't care what happens to your mother. The threat weighed down the air like suffocating pressure. But something inside Angelina finally snapped. She violently flung Lilith's hand away, a fire unlike anything before blazing in her eyes. On the other side, the Crown Prince watched the farce with open interest, a faint smile on his lips. It would be such a waste for someone this beautiful to be hanged, he said thoughtfully. Anna's jaw tightened at once, and her icy blue eyes narrowed dangerously. But the Crown Prince kept going, his tone even carrying a trace of lightness. Still, the law cannot be ignored again and again. He turned to Lilith. Don't you agree? Lilith ground her teeth and forced out her agreement. In that case, however, Friedrich Priska stepped forward, his expression grave. Your Highness, if you mean to punish a knight, you must first notify the Knight Order. If you act without prior notice, the entire order could be shaken because of it. Lilith let out a scornful laugh, her voice dripping with contempt. Is he saying that a few lowly knights could defy the will of the royal family? The Crown Prince dismissively waved a hand. He gave Friedrich Priska a meaningful look and said that, as expected, he had made the right choice in appointing the Duke as commander of the Knight Order. The remark silently reminded everyone who truly held power. Then he sat back down, interest glittering in his green eyes. Very well. He gestured to Anna. Then tell me exactly what happened. Anna stepped forward, her bearing impeccable, her face calm as an unbreakable mask. In an even tone, she recounted the events. While on patrol, she saw someone fall into the water, so she immediately went in to rescue her. She had never imagined that this would displease Princess Lilith. The moment her own name was mentioned, Lilith at once covered her face and began to sob, looking every bit the deeply wronged victim. Just then, the doors were flung open, and a maid rushed in, pointing at Anna as she loudly accused her. Your Highness, she shrieked. Everything that knight said is a lie. I can prove it. But Anna did not even change her expression. She continued at an unhurried pace, saying that she had merely acted according to a knight's duty and placed the safety of the imperial palace above all else. She did not believe she had done anything wrong. She lowered her head slightly in respect, not surrender. If you decide to punish me, she declared, then I will accept it without complaint. After all, no tragedy occurred in the palace today. Angelina looked at her, tears gradually filling her eyes. No, this was all wrong. She could not stand by and watch an innocent person take the blame for her sister's cruelty. With a cry that was almost desperate, she rushed forward and dropped to her knees before the throne. Your Highness, Crown Prince, she pleaded earnestly. Please listen to me. I will tell you the whole truth. The Crown Prince gave a slight nod. Speak. Angelina drew a deep breath and began. I was painting in the garden. With every sentence, her voice grew steadier. But my sister suddenly forced me to jump into the lake. The scene flashed through her mind again. Lilith's cruel order, the maid's rough hands. When I refused, she had her maid push me into the lake. She continued. Knight Anna was passing by and saved me. Lilith's face twisted with rage. Angelina, shut your mouth, she screamed. What nonsense are you babbling about? But Angelina did not retreat. Tears and righteous anger fell together from her eyes. I'm sorry, sister, she said, her voice shaking but firm. But I cannot stand by and watch an innocent person be falsely accused. So no matter what, I have to tell the truth. Panicked, Lilith hurried to seize control of the situation again and turned to the Crown Prince with a flustered expression. Your Highness, Angelina is only talking nonsense because she was frightened after falling into the water. It would be best to take her away first before she embarrasses herself further. Her maid immediately stepped forward to seize Angelina. But Angelina shook off her hand in one sharp motion. She stared straight at her sister, her voice full of accusation. How can you force the person who saved my life into danger instead? Why would you do this to the Crown Prince's knight? The truth finally came pouring out, naked and painful. From the very beginning, all of this was because of your jealousy. I never once wanted to ruin your engagement to His Highness. The Crown Prince looked at her with an unreadable expression, a faint smile still lingering on his lips. With nowhere left to turn, Angelina made one final heartbreaking plea. If I truly offend you that much, then I am willing to become a nun. The entire room instantly fell into deathly silence. It was Friedrich Priska who broke the silence. Thoughtfully, he said, to save someone with no expectation of reward does indeed take courage. The Crown Prince nodded in agreement. Anna was not wrong. A knight under the Knight Order should owe loyalty to only one person. He lightly tapped the armrest with his fingers. And that person is me. He looked at Lilith, and the smile had already disappeared from his face. From what I have heard, Anna was merely carrying out her duty. It's just that, apparently, it displeased the princess. He deliberately paused, letting the words linger in the air. However, he continued, his tone suddenly turning hard. Anna's attitude toward the princess was indeed disrespectful, so I have decided that her punishment will be a reduction in pay. Lilith's eyes widened in shock. A pay cut? Then the Crown Prince leaned slightly toward her, his tone gentle to the point of eeriness. Lilith, it seems you are still unfamiliar with the laws of the Hythian Empire. Why not copy them out by hand yourself? He placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, yet the gesture held not the slightest comfort. A smile returned to his face, sharp as a predator's. I trust that for the future Crown Princess, such a task should be effortless. Lilith could only force out a strained reply, her dignity trampled to pieces. Then the Crown Prince turned his gaze to Angelina, who was still kneeling. He stepped closer, and his tones softened somewhat. Angelina, he called quietly, lifting her chin with his fingers. Someone as beautiful as you should give up the idea of becoming a nun. His gaze locked onto hers, a trace of unreadable emotion passing through his eyes. If you became a nun, I would be very sad. After that, he dismissed everyone, saying he had state matters to discuss with the Duke. Once only the two of them remained, the Crown Prince's entire bearing changed at once. Anna is more resolute and decisive than I expected. As he spoke, he lightly tapped the documents on the table. Has her marriage engagement been arranged yet? Friedrich Priska's eyes darkened almost imperceptibly. Not yet, he answered. A smile of keen interest slowly spread across the Crown Prince's face. One interesting woman. Outside the garden, Lilith was still burning with rage. The moment she spotted Anna, she stormed straight toward her. Hey, you stop right there, she shrieked. Anna turned around, her expression calm. You're certainly bold, Lilith sneered, daring to run wild just because you have His Highness behind you. Anna merely raised a brow, faintly. You flatter me. I'm only following my own principles. The fearless calm in her eyes only made Lilith more enraged. Just you wait. She spat out the threat viciously. I will definitely get my hands on you, and then I will grind you to pieces. Anna only gave a cool shrug. As you wish. Lilith stormed off in fury, stomping away in indignation. Angelina hurried over to Anna, her face full of concern. I'm sorry. Because of me, you got dragged into something so awful, she said softly. Anna gave her a faint, reassuring smile. Please don't worry about it. I think Lilith and I were destined to stand on opposite sides from the very beginning. Angelina looked bewildered. Destined to be enemies? But didn't you two only? Later, inside the carriage, Anna leaned back against the soft cushions and nibbled on a snack. Sigh, dealing with things is exhausting, she said with a sigh. Friedrich Priska, seated across from her, was just about to lecture her, but she beat him to it, smiling slyly. Were you about to say that I shouldn't go causing trouble everywhere like an unbridled little pony again? That was exactly what you were going to say, wasn't it? She knew him far too well. Then her smile faded, and her expression turned cold. I understand what you mean, but what happened today wasn't because of me. He gave a small nod, acknowledging the point. You're right. Earlier today, as a knight, you handled it well. But only by remaining cautious at all times can danger be minimized. She reached out and poked his chest half-jokingly. Do you have to be this rigid all the time? I'm not the kind of person who acts recklessly without thinking. Friedrich Priska brushed her hand away, a trace of displeasure passing through his violet eyes. She only smiled, confidence shining in her own. since we've already decided to work together, then trust me a little more. Friedrich Priska fell silent, his thoughts sinking deeper. When Lilith had burst in earlier, he had thought Anna had done something foolish again. But not only had she saved someone, she had also refused to yield even under authority. That surprised him, and it was extremely dangerous. More importantly, he had seen the way Lias looked at her. The Crown Prince had already begun to take an interest in Anna. He had to find a way to keep her firmly under his control. The Priska family carried a dark past, a secret that bound them layer upon layer. The curse of the Priska family. It was a cruel fate. Every member of the family died before reaching 30. This long-standing curse was slowly driving their bloodline toward extinction. For that reason, Friedrich Priska's father had once sought out a master alchemist and ordered him to create a powerful oath potion. The potion contained astonishing magic. Once consumed, any vow made had to be obeyed until death. With nowhere else to turn, the Priska family made their servants drink this potion. In this way, they controlled their words, their actions, even their souls. The method was unimaginably cruel, but those who kept the oath remained safe. Anyone who dared violate it or reveal the family secret would meet a horrific death. This dark practice had continued to the present day and had become the very foundation of the Priska family survival. Back in the present, Friedrich Priska and Anna sat facing each other across a dining table. "Would you like a glass of red wine?" he asked in an even voice. "Sure, that sounds nice," she replied with a teasing smile. A servant promptly poured her a glass of rich crimson wine. "For someone as rigid and serious as you, suggesting a drink yourself is rare," she teased. "Alcohol is most useful for making people lose control." His expression remained serious. Sometimes slowing down a little and relaxing isn't such a bad thing. He handed her the wine glass. "Here." He raised his own glass to commemorate the fact that we're now in the same boat. Looking in her eyes, he said, "Then I should be formal as well." His voice lowered, taking on a solemn note. "I swear that I will remain by Anna's side forever." Anna let out a soft laugh, the sound echoing through the quiet room. "We're only having a drink, yet your declaration is really quite dramatic." He calmly explained that the Crown Prince was extremely perceptive, so they needed to appear more unified. His gaze softened slightly as he admitted that her composure under pressure earlier had truly surprised him and made him realize that more honesty was needed between them. He took a sip of red wine. "I apologize for the prejudice I held against you before." Anna showed him a sincere, warm smile. "Since you've gone that far, I suppose I should respond in kind." She raised her glass. "I, Anna, swear that I will support Friedrich Priska and stand forever at his side as his ally." At the end, a sharp glint flashed through her eyes, and she added one condition, "Of course, provided that you do not betray me first, Duke." Then she drank from her glass, leaving those words for him to ponder on his own. Their glasses clinked softly, and a silent pact was sealed in that moment. A happy partnership. Anna rose from her seat and gave an affectedly elegant yawn. "Since we've raised our glasses, I'll head upstairs first. After all, a lady needs her beauty sleep too. Good night." He watched her retreating figure. The instant she turned away, the friendliness she had just shown was already replaced by cold determination. She thought to herself, "I don't know why he suddenly becomes so kind, but for now I'd better stay cautious and borrow his power." Her true purpose burned in her heart like a hidden flame. "Since I've taken on Alice's life, I have to build up my strength until I can complete my revenge." Early the next morning, Anna was walking through the sun-drenched garden as Anna when she heard a cheerful voice calling her name. It was Angelina, waving her over to a small table on the terrace. "Good morning, Anna," she said with a smile. "What are you doing?" Angelina pointed to a huge dark blue crystal ball resting on a cushion. "I'm letting my crystal ball soak up the sun," she explained. "It's for worship." As she said that, her expression dimmed slightly. "I grew up all alone, so I've always had to do everything myself." A thought flashed through Anna's mind. "If it's all right, would you like me to tell your fortune? If you're willing, it would be my honor." She placed both hands on the cool crystal surface and closed her eyes. "Maybe I can use this to find out where the jewel is. It would be better to ask indirectly than too bluntly." "I've lost something in the Imperial Palace," she murmured. "Please tell me where it is." The crystal ball began to glow, and runes lit up one by one across its surface, but Angelina frowned, concentrating intently. How strange. Why can't I see anything? Then the darkness inside the crystal ball suddenly shattered, revealing fragmented images. A woman in a knight's uniform, then another woman, a sorrowful, blonde, noble lady. Angelina sucked in a sharp breath, her eyes widening in shocked realization. Two souls? Could be because there are two souls inside her. Did you see something? Anna asked. Angelina opened her eyes and quickly composed herself, hiding her shock. Ah, well, the thing you're looking for is in an enclosed space, somewhere like a secret chamber. I'm not sure of the details, but I know you'll find it very soon. She smiled, her eyes now holding a new understanding. Oh, and I discovered something even more interesting, Your Highness. Anna gave a tense laugh. Me? Your Highness? Why are you calling me that? She hurriedly came up with an excuse to leave, but just as she turned away, Angelina called after her. No matter who you really are, your wish will come true, so don't worry. Anna stopped, then turned back with a smile. Haha, thank you. Then I'll be going. Cradling the crystal ball in her arms, Angelina watched her leave with a gentle smile on her face. So Anna is Alice. His Highness the Crown Prince has no idea that the person he's desperately searching for is actually right by his side. Her resolve grew even firmer. But I will keep Anna's secret. I would never betray the person who saved me. Anna strode quickly through the sunlit garden, yet a knot of irritation was slowly tightening in her chest. Damn it, she hadn't expected Angelina to find out about her and the Duke. She clenched her teeth. That woman is like a venomous snake, but as long as she's still wary of the Duke, she should keep her mouth shut. She'll keep the secret, right? Even so, this near exposure was a warning. I'll have to be much more careful from now on. Having made up her mind, she quickened her pace along the gravel path. Just then, a familiar figure appeared in the reflection of a glass door, making her heart jolt. It was the Crown Prince. He turned his gaze toward her, and a strange look flickered across his face as their eyes met. He spoke her name, his voice gentle and probing, as if he were truly seeing her for the first time. He noticed that she didn't look well. Anna reacted instantly, lifting a bright smile at once, the flawless social mask she had perfected over many years. Her slender hand rose lightly to her chin, the movement marked by a distinctly feminine grace. The Crown Prince's eyes widened slightly, and an emotion she couldn't read flashed through them. He thought, she really is beautiful when she smiles. But in the very next moment, a sly, unsettling smile curled at his lips, and his thoughts slid in a dark, possessive direction. That gentle mask slowly peeled away, revealing the predator beneath. Oh, he was truly impatient to see what she would look like in bed. But before he could voice that filthy thought, a crisp knock suddenly sounded outside the door. The Crown Prince's expression instantly returned to normal. He told the visitor to come in, then turned away as if Anna were nothing more than a toy forgotten at his side. A royal messenger entered, bowed deeply, and presented a sealed decree. Your Highness, he reported, His Majesty has sent a letter of appointment. The decree stated that Crown Prince Lias was being appointed the new lord of a border territory of the Hythian Empire. A reward? No, this was exile. Lias's face twisted with rage, and with a low growl in his throat, he slammed the decree down onto the table. Absurd. Completely absurd. His voice hissed like poison. So that old man never intended to hand real power over to me. The messenger flinched in fear and quickly tried to soothe him, saying he should be patient and that he would still have chances to achieve great merit in the future. But Lias wasn't listening at all. He was trapped in the eye of his own rage. That fool is afraid. He's afraid I'll take his place. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white, suppressing the fury that had his whole body trembling. Then suddenly, it was as if he drew all that anger back in, replacing it with an icy calm. He turned to the cowering messenger and asked in a dangerously low voice, "Have you found Lilith yet?" The man shook his head and stammered that they still hadn't found her. Lias's eyes fell on a small, exquisite bottle on the table. As he ordered the man to speed up the search, a violent coughing fit suddenly seized him. He raised a hand to cover his mouth, his body shuddering with each cough. Grinding his teeth, he issued a chilling threat. "If you still can't find her, none of you will keep your heads. He picked up the decree again, and when the messenger dared ask about the arrangements at the temple, Lias snapped impatiently. Do I really need to answer that? Just do what's written in the letter. Deep inside him, resentment continued to fester. That old man isn't dead yet, so for now I have no choice but to do as he says. So the royal procession set out, draped in false piety and carrying a tide of smoldering anger beneath the surface, heading for the temple. Walking beside the Duke, Anna looked up at the clear blue sky and couldn't help but smile. Friedrich noticed this rare moment of peace from her and asked what she was smiling about. Her smile deepened a little. I just think this is rather nice, she replied playfully. Unlike you, Duke, who only knows how to work, I do know how to enjoy a little romance, so don't scold me for it. He lifted a brow, and the faintest trace of a smile appeared at his lips as he teased her for daring to slack off in front of her superior. This isn't slacking off, she said with a laugh. It's enjoying romance while staying alert to my surroundings. She didn't forget to jab at him either. When you were a princess before, I could doubt you had many chances to go out like this. His smile faded slightly. He reminded her not to let down her guard and even threatened in mock seriousness to dock her pay. A mischievous glint immediately lit her eyes. If you cut my salary, then the Duke will have to take full responsibility for my living expenses. She leaned a little closer and lowered her voice as if sharing a secret. I'd be very grateful for that. I trust you completely, Master. A faint flush spread across Friedrich's neck, and even his ears turned an adorable shade of red. He immediately looked away and muttered for her to shut up. Just then, another carriage slowly came into view. Inside the carriage, Angelina sat like a queen on her throne while maids bustled around her. One of them confirmed that everything she had ordered prepared was ready. A cruel yet resolute smile slowly rose to Angelina's lips. This time, she swore to herself, I will make Crown Prince Lias completely infatuated with me. Their destination was the grand and solemn great temple of St. Perseus. Inside its sanctuary, Bishop Andrew was warmly welcoming a man with long jet-black hair and a serene expression. His name was St. Lawns. The saint answered with practiced humility, saying that he was merely carrying out the duty entrusted to him by God. Then a knowing smile flickered in his eyes. It seems you were waiting for a guest. No sooner had he spoken than the guard's announcement echoed through the sanctuary. His Highness Lias has arrived. The Crown Prince strode in, with Angelina and Anna following at his left and right, and politely greeted the bishop. But St. Lawns was not looking at the Crown Prince. His gaze was sharp and unnaturally intent, fixed on Anna. A strange presence stirred within him. That woman. I can sense holy power from her. He shuddered inwardly, and a vision suddenly flashed before his eyes. A golden-haired beauty with her hands clasped in prayer, bathed in sacred light. She reminds me of Alice. Anna went rigid, as if her blood had frozen in an instant. She cried out inwardly. Lawns is the third male lead. He's already appeared. As though answering that realization, a warm light began to shine from the center of her chest. What is this? Has my identity been exposed? My body, it's reacting? At the same time, Lawns's eyes widened in disbelief. This woman, it can't be. Could she really be Alice? He stepped forward and introduced himself, his expression unreadable. Anna's heart slammed hard against her ribs. Calm down. What he sees is Anna, not Alice. He won't recognize me. She forced herself to remain composed, while the Crown Prince, completely unaware, shook the saint's hand, never noticing the dangerous tension silently crackling between his knight and the holy man. After night fell, Friedrich and Anna walked back together through the silent courtyard. He asked whether everything had gone smoothly during this patrol. Yes, everything was fine, she answered, but a deep exhaustion had already sunk into her bones. She fought back a yawn. Training isn't easy, she said. I'll go back and rest first. Friedrich watched her leave, a worried crease forming between his brows. Anna walked along the long corridor under the moonlight, her thoughts in complete disarray. There were already more than enough problems to deal with, and now another unpredictable male lead had appeared. Suddenly, a flicker of movement in the shadows caught her attention. A figure darted past the stone pillar. Her training took over at once. Who's there? Her voice was sharp and clear. The figure didn't stop, and she immediately gave chase. Stop right there. The pursuit didn't last long. The intruder was unbelievably fast and vanished in the blink of an eye into the depths of the maze-like corridors. Leaning against the stone wall, Anna panted for breath. Where did he go? Just then, A faint footstep sounded directly behind her. She spun around, her face full of irritation. Standing there, bathed in pale moonlight, was St. Lawrence. A disturbing smile slowly spread across his face. "You really are fearless," he said softly, his voice like silk and like poison. Before she could react, he seized her arm, his grip like an iron clamp. He yanked her around so hard that her back slammed into his chest, and one hand wound around her neck. She was pinned so tightly that all she could do was look at her own frightened face reflected in the polished mirror beside them. Lanza's lips brushed past her ear as he murmured, "But a disobedient cat will never be loved." Meanwhile, elsewhere, Friedrich was listening to his adjutant's report. "The baptism ceremony will be officiated by St. Lawrence," the adjutant said, adding that Bishop Andrew had recommended him. Friedrich's expression darkened. "I didn't expect to run in a lawns here." A cold memory rose up, back when he had still been a child and had come to the temple with his father. He had seen the young Lawns wearing a dreadful, fanatical smile as he brutally beat a little white rabbit to death with a golden holy chalice, staining the sacred object red with blood. Young Friedrich had gasped in shock and accidentally snapped a branch underfoot. Lawns had jerked his head up. "So you saw that," he said, without the slightest trace of remorse in his voice. He raised a blood-stained finger to his lips, a devilish smile curling his mouth. "You have to keep a secret from me, all right?" Back in the present, Friedrich dismissed the adjutant, leaving only a stern, determined look on his face. Lawns is dangerous. He clenched his fist and thought, Alice must be careful. Meanwhile, in the dim corridor, Anna was still struggling under Lawns' restraint. "You lure me here just to say that?" she said coldly. Lawns chuckled softly. "No, I originally thought I knew you, but your name is different. That's none of your business." "Let me go," she growled, trying to pry his fingers from her throat. "I'm still on duty right now, so please stop making such reckless moves. Just like in the novel, a complete madman." She was irritated beyond measure and stomped hard on his foot. He let out a muffled grunt, and his grip loosened for a moment, but it quickly returned as he shoved her back against a huge mirror. "Don't be like that," he coaxed in a low voice, his face far too close to hers. "We both serve the same God." His eyes shone with something close to fanaticism. "You've clearly misunderstood something." That sentence completely ignited Anna's anger. In the next instant, her sword was already out of its sheath, its cold edge pressed against his throat. "Why don't you first tell me what exactly you want?" she demanded. To her shock, Lawns merely leaned back against the mirror, utterly unconcerned by the blade at his neck. "All of this is God's will," he said dreamily. "The fact that we met like this today proves it." Anna replied coldly, "Don't insult God." His gaze bored deep into her eyes. "But I really am curious. Knight Anna, I sense a very familiar soul from you." He glanced down at the sword, the corner of his mouth lifting in a predator's smile. "What do you mean by that? I've never seen you before in my life, so don't play games with me." Her voice was dangerous and deadly serious. "Unless you don't want to go on living as a saint." She pressed the blade a little farther forward. "If you do this again, this sword won't merely graze your neck." At last, she shot him a cold glare, sheathed her sword, and turned away, leaving him alone in the darkness. Lawns watched her go, a smile still lingering on his lips. "Hiding your soul with a potion?" he whispered into the empty room. "I want to see what secret you're hiding." "How interesting." Anna stormed down the corridor, her mind filled with fear and disgust. "He's just as disgusting as the Crown Prince. I don't want anything to do with men like that. Patrol alone has already worn me out. Maybe I should just kill him for real." She finally returned to her room and pushed the door open, only to find Friedrich waiting inside. "So you're finally back," he said, his tone unreadable. She collapsed into a chair, too tired to even muster surprise. "So, what did you want to talk to me about?" He began lecturing her in a serious tone about schedules and returning too late, but she cut him off directly. "Are you seriously here to lecture me about work right now? If so, then please leave. I just finished patrol, and I want to rest." His expression softened. "Please stay away from St. Lawrence," he said, genuine concern in his voice. "He's a very dangerous man." She was instantly intrigued, and a teasing smile slowly curved her lips as she began unfastening the buttons of her uniform. "Are you worried about something?" Friedrich's face turned bright red at once. "Were you never taught proper manners? How can you undress in front of a man who isn't your husband?" She laughed. "We've already embraced before, so what's there to be shy about?" He insisted that it wasn't the same, then repeated his question, "Why did you suddenly tell me to be careful around lawns?" She leaned slightly forward, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "Don't tell me you actually like me?" He immediately fell speechless, hurriedly emphasizing that this was only part of their alliance, and then told her the horrible story about lawns and the rabbit. "So he's been a pervert since childhood." A chill crawled through her, but she still nodded. "All right, I'll be careful." "Good," he said, clearly relieved. When he reached the door, he paused again. "And don't come back this late again in the future." That's an order from a superior to a subordinate. He really is quite addicted to this role play, Anna thought with a trace of amusement. The next day, the baptism ceremony was held in the great temple. Crown Prince Lias knelt reverently, while Saint Lawns placed a hand on his head and chanted a sacred prayer. "All filth of the flesh shall be washed away, and even the sickness buried deep within the soul shall be purified." Afterward, in the purification chamber, Anna stood guard nearby, while the crown prince soaked in a large bath filled with holy water. Her watch was about to end. What does he want now? Is he plotting something shameful again? As if reading her mind, Lias spoke. "Knight Anna, how does it feel to serve in the Imperial Knight Order?" "It is my honor to serve His Majesty," she answered calmly and formally. He let out a low laugh. "That sounds straight out of textbook. Come closer." She hesitated. "I'm afraid that would be somewhat inappropriate." His smile sharpened. "That's an order. What trick is he trying to pull now?" Though wary, she still obeyed and carefully stepped forward. In that instant, his hand shot out of the water, grabbed her arm, and yanked her over hard. She cried out as her whole body fell into the bath, water splashing everywhere. He pinned her against his naked chest and whispered by her ear, "I want you to attend me personally, Princess Liliana." Liliana carefully painted her lips a vivid red and gazed at herself in the mirror, her eyes full of ambition. This is the moment, the final step, she thought, a smile of certainty curving her lips. Very soon, she would become His Majesty's woman. Her heart thudded greedily and eagerly. "Your Majesty, please wait just a little longer." She lifted a tray, the 2 goblets of dark red wine glinting under the light, her first gift to the man she was about to conquer. Meanwhile, in the purification chamber, the air was thick with steam and tension. Anna struggled to pull back, her voice tight, as she insisted this was not the place for such behavior. But Lias kept pressing closer. He held her arm with iron strength, his burning gaze nailing her in place. Leaning back in the steaming hot water, a devilish smile slowly spread across his face. "Why do you refuse me?" he said softly, his voice low and suggestive. "Didn't you say that in order to get close to me, you were willing to do whatever it took?" Anna's heart pounded violently. This man, this unbearable crown prince. She wrenched her arm free, her cheeks burning with anger. "You misunderstand," she said through clenched teeth. "I only want to fulfill my duties properly." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Duties? What duty could possibly be easier than becoming my woman?" She gasped in shock. "Your Highness," she cried, disbelief written all over her face. "There are many women in this world who strive to live without depending on men, and I am one of them. I am not a woman for your Highness to treat lightly. I am your guard knight." With a splash, Lias rose from the water, droplets sliding down his sculpted body. "Interesting," he said with clear amusement, his eyes gleaming playfully. "You've completely immersed yourself in this diligent knight role. Fine, then I'll play along with you." Anna's stomach tightened. She had to get out of here immediately. "It seems I have disturbed your Highness's purification ceremony," she said stiffly, turning to leave. "Then I'll take my leave now." But just as her hand touched the doorknob, his cold, sharp voice suddenly cut through the air. "Stop right there." Her hand tightened instantly around the handle. "Are you defying my orders?" In an instant, he was behind her, his warm, damp body pressed tightly against her back, trapping her against the heavy door. "You know you can't do that," he murmured, his hot breath brushing her ear. Her whole body went rigid at once. "Let go of me," she rasped, struggling to break free from his grip. His arm wrapped around her waist and pulled her even closer, so close it was almost impossible to get any nearer. "Do you feel that? I'm this excited because of you." He ground against her, sending a message so obvious and disgusting it made her skin crawl. Fury flared in Anna's eyes. "If you keep this up," she warned in a low, dangerously cold voice, "I won't hold back anymore either." He let out a soft laugh. The laugh was low and mocking. That's not something a knight should say to her sovereign. His hand moved to her collar, and the touch made her whole body go numb. "Don't be afraid. I'll make you feel very good." That was the final straw. With an angry growl, she shoved him away with all her strength. "Get away from me." He staggered backward, shock filling his eyes, then crashed heavily into the bath, sending up a huge splash. At that moment, the door opened. It was Princess Liliana. Anna's mind raced, and she seized the opportunity at once, instantly putting on a look of utter panic. "Oh no!" His Highness slipped into the bath. "Hurry and call a physician." She turned as if in confusion and slammed straight into the stunned princess, sending the tray of wine flying. "Are you blind?" Liliana shrieked as the crimson wine soaked the front of her expensive gown. Anna bowed deeply, her face the picture of flawless fear and apology. "Princess Liliana, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean to run into you. His Highness Lias is in trouble, and I must fetch a physician at once. I truly apologize, but please wait just a moment." With that, she rushed out of the room, leaving chaos behind her. Liliana trembled with rage and hurried to the bath. "Oh heavens, Your Highness, are you all right?" As she bent to help him up, wine from her dress dripped into the pool, staining the holy water a revolting pink. Lias's face twisted with fury. "Liliana, how dare you defile the holy water?" "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to," she whimpered, clinging to his arm. But when he stood, he flung her aside, his disgust plain to see. "This is no place for a princess. Have them prepare fresh holy water." After he strode away, Liliana's expression twisted into a mask of venomous obsession. "Lias," she said to herself, "no one will ever take you away from me. No one." Anna hurried through the palace corridors. Her heart was still pounding violently from what had just happened. Suddenly, a hand caught her arm. "Anna." It was Cain. He looked at her pale face, his own expression full of concern. "What happened?" She tried to brush it off. "Nothing. I have to go." But he did not let go. "No, something definitely happened. Why do you look like this?" Seeing the genuine worry in his eyes, the emotion she had been forcing down finally collapsed. She looked up at him, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Actually, Lias tried to force himself on me in the purification chamber. I only managed to push him away in the end." Cain changed almost instantly. All warmth vanished from his eyes, replaced by terrifying killing intent. "I'm sorry it brought back something you didn't want to remember," he said in a voice so calm it was almost eerie. "Then I'll go kill that bastard." He turned to leave, but Anna grabbed his arm at once, panic filling her eyes. "No, please calm down. Now isn't the time." "I don't care," he growled, his body trembling slightly with rage. "I'm not letting this go. I've had enough. He has to pay." She tightened her grip on him and pleaded, "I understand how you feel, but we have to handle this carefully." He lowered his gaze to her, and only then did the flames in his eyes ease slightly. "I know." He finally relented, though his voice was still taut, his violent impulses barely restrained. As the two of them left, a dark figure watched them from the shadows. "So her name is Anna," he muttered, a predator's smile slowly spreading across his face. A new piece has appeared on the board, he thought. Is the name of that soul Anna as well? The thought sent a thrilling shiver down his spine. Uncovering secrets was always the most exciting part, but the story was moving too slowly. He needed to give it a little push. "Anna, are you ready to accept the challenge?" After returning to her room, Anna felt as though she had been driven to the edge. "No matter how I look at it, every path ends in death." The pages she had scribbled in panic were filled with endings where she was assassinated, poisoned, or executed. If only she could find that gem that could mobilize the knights. What good is knowing the entire plot, anyway? The pen in her hand snapped in two. The original story had never even explained what her power was. "Back then, I was nothing but fish on a chopping block." Suddenly, a blinding golden light filled the room. A shining figure appeared before her. Anna's eyes widened in disbelief. "Alice, I thought you only appeared in my dreams." The former princess's spirit smiled gently. "My soul has recovered a little, so I can appear like this now." She looked at Anna with curious, knowing eyes. "Even though I occupied your body, your soul doesn't seem to have disappeared. I'm curious how far you can endure." Anna gave a bitter laugh and leaned forward. "Since you're here, at least give me a hint. Tell me where the gem is." But Alice only shook her head sadly. "I'm sorry. I don't know either." "What?" Anna shot to her feet and slammed both hands onto the table. "That's ridiculous. Weren't you the king's only child? How could you not know?" "Father always believed that as long as he was alive, there would never be any need for me to touch that gem," Alice explained, sorrow coloring her voice. "So when war suddenly broke out, he was helpless too. He never had the chance to tell me where it was." But then she added, drifting a little closer, "However, there's one thing I can leave you." She extended a shining hand and pointed at the mark on Anna's chest. That mark will show you the way. Could you say that in a way I can actually understand? Anna shouted, but the spirit had already begun to fade, dissolving into tiny golden motes of light. Later, Anna found Cain in the reception room, and in his hand was the paper on which she had written all those possible death endings. "What are you doing?" she demanded, reaching to snatch it back. He lifted the paper out of her reach, then casually tossed it into the candle flame. "As your ally, I object to any reckless plan. Is that why you wanted to form an alliance with me?" Her voice was full of suspicion and caution. "I'm not trying to get in your way," he said steadily. "I just want to help you, on the condition that you don't do anything dangerous." He held out a small but ornate object. "Take this. It's the captain of the Night Order's seal. Tomorrow I'll pretend to be sick and take a day off. You'll lead the patrol in my place." Anna was too stunned to speak. "You want me to stand watch at the purification chamber in your place? What if Gates loses his temper?" Kane's expression was firm. "We're allies now. A comrade's safety comes first." With that, he turned and left. Anna could only stare blankly at his back, completely at a loss. "Honestly, when you treat me this well, I don't even know what to do." The next day, behind the temple, the patrol began. Standing before her knights, Anna felt a strange sense of peace arise within her. "As long as I don't have to see Lias, I feel like I could fly." A faint smile touched her lips, but that brief moment of peace was broken by a gentle voice. "We meet again. It has been a long time." She spun around sharply to see that mysterious black-haired man, the Demon King, standing there with a basket of fresh herbs. "What?" He smiled serenely. "Bishop Andrew hasn't been sleeping well lately, so I came to brew him some herbal tea to calm his nerves." "I'm not a bad person, Miss Anna. How do you know my name?" she asked, her hand instinctively moving to the hilt of her sword. He merely chuckled softly. "It isn't difficult to find out someone's name. Would you like to have some tea with me?" "Sorry, I'm on duty," she said coldly, turning to leave. "Please wait." A hand landed on her shoulder. "What do you think you're touching?" she snapped, but it was already too late. He blew a cloud of glittering golden powder into her face. Her vision spun, and her body suddenly felt unbelievably heavy. She collapsed, but he caught her with ease and drew her into his arms. "You fell asleep so quickly. It seems these herbs really are quite effective," he murmured, a victorious smile on his lips. Then he picked her up and carried her into the deep shade of the trees. "Sleep well, Anna." The sky was torn apart by furious thunder, jagged lightning illuminating the heavens. Rain poured down like punishment, lashing the towering cathedral, every drop like a cold whisper striking the Gothic stained glass. Inside the cathedral, the storm was shut out, and hushed voices echoed through the sacred corridors. Two priests, draped in the guise of piety, were speaking of blasphemy. In low voices, they said that tonight the Holy Apostle would become one with the legendary Holy Maiden. For the nation to receive the blessing of God, a new child of God had to descend. But those whispers soon turned sinister, laced with sordid rumors. One of the priests leaned in closer and lowered his voice even further, saying he had heard the Holy Maiden had once been involved with a man. He hissed, did the Holy Apostle not care? The other only sneered. If it was that man, he declared, even the Holy Maiden's soul could be purified. Those wicked words hung in the air as the two turned and walked away, leaving behind only a chilling implication. And deep within the grand hall, a horrifying scene had already been prepared. At the center of the baptismal pool stood a figure too beautiful to seem human. It was a man with golden hair, cascading like a waterfall, bound to a cross with thorn vines, with only a nearly non-existent strip of white cloth covering him. The gathered crowd gazed at him, their faces filled with awe and fanatical devotion. "Oh, great God!" They clasped their hands in prayer, begging for salvation, begging that holy being to save their nation and deliver them from sin. A stir of excited unrest swept through the hall. He had arrived. The Holy Apostle had finally appeared. A man with long black hair and sharp eyes stepped forward. His splendid robe trailed across the floor, and every movement carried an unsettling elegance. When he spoke, his voice was smooth as silk, yet carried a command no one dared disobey, and the entire hall stopped breathing. During the ritual, no one was permitted to make a sound. Tonight, he stopped before the cross, his gaze settling on the bound Holy Maiden. "Holy Maiden, are you ready?" A cruel smile curved his lips but he did not wait for an answer. Though even if you're not, it doesn't matter. He deliberately slowed his movements, stepping into the water with near-mocking leisure. His deep voice rumbled like the purr of a great beast as he declared that he would personally guide the holy maiden. He stared at that silent, beautiful figure, a dark glint passing through his eyes. So quiet, just as expected of a holy maiden, he praised, reaching toward the thorn vines. Then his smile deepened into a predator's grin. "Before we begin the ritual," he announced to the silent onlookers, "I will first purify your body completely." With one yank, he tore away that strip of white cloth, leaving the holy maiden naked in the holy water. "Now, then, shall we begin?" Cold malice dripped from his voice. He declared that they would move elsewhere, then displayed astonishing strength by lifting the holy maiden from the cross and carrying that limp body away from the baptismal pool. He set the holy maiden down. At last, a fragile, trembling voice broke the silence. "God will never forgive you," she said softly, tears sliding down her face. The apostle only chuckled. He bent close and gently reproached her. "Please don't say such things. I am someone personally blessed by God." The words were the cruelest mockery of the sacred. "To conceive the child of God," he continued, wearing a twisted mask of devotion. "Do you understand what a supreme honor that is?" He turned to the crowd, and his voice thundered through the cathedral. "Now all of you watch closely. Tonight, the child of God will be born." The crowd stared in rapture as he declared that every one of them would bear witness to this sacred act. A tear slipped from the corner of the holy maiden's eye, silent proof of the horror unfolding before them. The devout believers lowered their heads in prayer, utterly unaware of the desecration. The apostle stood with his back to them, his figure reduced to a black silhouette beneath the holy light, and the entire scene finally sank into an abyss of despair. A groan escaped her lips as consciousness slowly returned. Her wrists ached faintly, bound tightly by rough rope. A smooth, condescending voice pierced through the haze. "You're awake." She snapped her eyes open and saw the apostle looking down at her with a self-satisfied smile. Her throat tightened, terror nearly choking her. "What did he do to me?" She struggled wildly again, her voice ripping into a scream. "You perverted bastard. What did you do to me?" He lazily curled his lips into a smile, swirling a glass of dark red wine in his hand. "I only gave you a mild drug," he said softly, false concern dripping from his voice. "Something to make you more easily aroused. You should already be feeling it, shouldn't you?" All the blood in her body ran cold. "What arrogance! You dare lay hands on a royal knight!" She shouted angrily, her eyes blazing. "Once this gets out, forget your position as apostle. You won't even keep your life." But he only laughed under his breath, a sound that chilled her to the core. "I don't care," he replied after sipping his wine. "If I can spend some time with you before I die, that doesn't sound so bad." Her breath caught. "You're insane," she whispered, fear knotting her stomach. He leaned closer, his smile widening into a predator's curve. "That's right," he admitted. "From now on, I intend to take off my mask and have some real fun with you." With a flick of his wrist, he splashed the wine from the glass on her chest, and the crimson liquid spread across her uniform like a fresh wound. A strange energy pulsed through her, wave after wave of magic-like dizziness sweeping over her whole body. Her body was changing. Her hair lengthened, turning into dazzling gold, and her features softened as well. Her disguise was gone. He knows. How could he possibly know? He seized her chin and forced her to look up at him. "So, you should return to your original appearance too, shouldn't you? Consider it the price of my keeping your secret." Her mind was in chaos. "When did you know?" she demanded, her voice shaking. The corner of his mouth lifted, amusement glittering in his eyes. "Who knows? Perhaps from the very first moment I saw you." He spoke casually. "I knew there was more than just Alice's soul inside your body. There was another one too." He explained that the drug he had given her was indeed potent, but ultimately pointless, because its effect would reveal itself the moment it touched water. His hand moved her chest, gentle in a way that made her sick. "And as for you, though it had only been a rumor before, I never expected you really possessed holy power," he murmured. "Now I can truly feel it here. You really are the holy maiden." A victorious smile appeared on his face. "It seems I've uncovered 2 secrets." He leaned close, his hot breath sweeping past her ear. "If you really are the holy maiden, then naturally you should bear God's child. That horrifying ritual flashed through her mind at once. The crowd's blind prayers, the apostle's twisted face, and her own helplessness. This can't happen. She was trapped. Seeing the fear in her eyes, he stepped back, his expression turning sly. So, would you like to make a deal with me? He moved close again, his hand brushing lightly through her hair. If you don't believe me, I can even swear it before God. He pulled her into his arms, his grip like iron. Ah, she whimpered, strength draining from her body. His condescending voice slithered into her ear like poison. You're trembling in fear right now, he mocked. This is starting to get interesting. Her body shook uncontrollably. It was too terrifying, truly too terrifying. Had Alice gone through this every single day before? The memory of that ritual came flooding back. The chanting, the prayers, the pleas for God to send his descendant down upon this land. Desperate tears slid down her cheeks. When would this pain ever end? Could only death bring all of this to a stop? No. A fire ignited deep within her soul. It was blazing rage. At the very least, I absolutely cannot collapse here. Absolutely not. She snapped her eyes open, a new resolve burning in them. In the next instant, she shot out a hand and grabbed his wrist with astonishing strength. He froze, startled by her sudden resistance. What? A hint of impatience entered his voice. Do you have something to say? She met his gaze and lifted her lips into a provocative smile. Of course. Her voice was steady and icy now. He sneered back at her. Are you planning to kneel and beg me to spare you? She let out a short laugh. Beg you? As if. I just think you're pathetic. That's all. His eyes widened in shock. She continued, each word a blade. I thought you must have some incredible skill, which is why I kept letting you run your little game. But you're so boring, I almost fell asleep. Looks like you've been shut away from the world. So long your senses have dulled. Her smile was dangerously beautiful. How stale. Meanwhile, in the palace, the Crown Prince stood waiting with gloves on, a pocket watch in his hand. His knight, Fyodor, approached him. Your Highness, it is time, he reported. The Crown Prince, bare-chested and preparing for his own baptismal ritual, turned at the words. Why are you here today? Fyodor kept his expression under perfect control. Anna has been troubled by an evil presence, so I came in her place today. He lied without changing expression. I could not allow your Highness's baptism to be stained with blood. Please forgive me. The Crown Prince studied him for a moment with sharp green eyes. I see. So that's how it is, he said, though disbelief was obvious in his tone. He was about to call a maid to help him dress when Fyodor bowed. But just as he turned to leave, the Crown Prince's voice stopped him. Fyodor, starting tomorrow, you need not come anymore. The Crown Prince's face remained calm, but the words were nothing short of outright dismissal. Speaking of the smell of blood, no one carries more of it than someone who survived the battlefield. A slight change flickered in Fyodor's eyes, but he still lowered his head. Yes, as you command. As he left, his thoughts raced. Did Lias notice something? This is bad. I need to tell Anna. At that moment, he ran into another knight. Lucas, just the man I was looking for. Do you know where Knight Anna is right now? Lucas looked flustered. Oh, well, I've been looking for Captain Anna all day too, but I can't find her anywhere. A chill ran through Fyodor's entire body. What did you say? Lucas explained that after finishing his morning patrol, he had gone to look for her, but she had been missing ever since. And now all the piled-up work has been left undone. Fyodor's expression changed at once, and he barked an order. Assemble the men immediately. Search for Anna. The knights hurried off to obey. A terrible premonition swept over Friedrich. Don't tell me something happened. He closed his eyes, power surging around him, and with a blinding flash, a magic circle appeared beneath his feet, revealing a vision. He saw her, Anna. She had taken off her knight's coat, her hands still bound, sitting on the floor completely defenseless. He snapped his eyes open, shock and fury exploding in them. Thank goodness I tampered with her drink, he thought anxiously. Now that I know where she is, I can find her quickly. He turned, his cloak billowing behind him. Please, just stay safe until then. Meanwhile, in the room, the holy apostle stared at Anna with great interest, clearly intrigued by her sudden change. Have you changed tactics? Are you trying to provoke me? He asked. She only smiled, her face carrying a charming, fearless expression. The more I look at you, the more fascinating you seem, she said, her voice a seductive murmur. She lifted her bound hands slightly. If you want to enjoy this properly, you should untie my hands first. You know, it's hard to strike a pose pose like this. The holy apostle narrowed his eyes, suspicion written all over his face. Do you really think I'd believe you? He scoffed. You're not joking, are you? She shot back. Her smile never wavered. What? Are you that insecure? Do you have to keep me tied up? She leaned forward a little, danger glinting in her eyes. Whatever. Let's begin, holy apostle, before anyone else gets here. His mind churned, and in the silent room, only one thought echoed. Impossible, impossible. Princess Eloise could never be this one. Could it be because another soul still resides in this beautiful body? When she beckoned to him, he found himself leaning closer. Her voice was an intimate whisper, as if she would show him everything if he came just a little nearer. Even with her hands bound, she was still the one in control. As he bent closer, just as she instructed, he asked. She guided him lower, her voice husky as she softly told him to come down more. A knowing smile slowly rose on the holy apostle's lips. Ah, I understand what you want, he thought, reaching for her collar. She simply said, that's right, confirming his guess. A strange light flashed in her eyes as she pulled him down between her legs. Shall I teach you properly right now? He thought, countless possibilities flashing through his mind. But in the next instant, everything changed. A vicious shove sent him flying. What? He didn't even have time to react before he slammed hard onto the marble floor with a dull, horrifying thud. He looked up in shock and saw Eloise scrambling away from him in panic. Hey you, he roared, pushing himself up on one foot. Her face was full of terror and confusion. Ugh, she gasped, her hands still tied behind her back as she desperately reached for the nearby door and shook the handle with all her strength. The room echoed with a desperate metallic rattling. Her face twisted with strain and fear, and nervous laughter spilled from her lips. What is going on? Why is she here? What happened? A dark memory flashed through her mind. That man's cold voice, the malice in his eyes as he threatened that if she made any trouble, he would only hold her tighter. Back in the present, she heard a voice from outside the door. You're awake? Did smashing your head on the marble floor knock something loose? She shook the handle even harder, her knuckles turning white. Don't struggle, the voice continued. You can't open it anyway. Her heart sank. Why won't it open? Just as despair began to close in, another voice cut through the air, calm and steady. You should finish what you started. In the next moment, the door split apart with a tremendous crash. A figure stood in the dazzling light. Eloise staggered backward, her eyes widening as she saw that it was Friedrich, expressionless. He swept his gaze over her disheveled state and asked, Are you all right? He took off his heavy, fur-collared coat and draped it over her slightly trembling shoulders. Put on, he ordered in a low, firm voice. You got here so fast, she said weakly, her neck quietly flushing red as she clutched the coat, still warm from his body. By then, Friedrich's attention had already shifted to the man still lying on the floor. When he saw the holy apostle curled up between his boots, cold fury instantly flared in his eyes. Without a word, he kicked him viciously. The holy apostle grunted and was sent flying, rolling across the room in humiliation. Friedrich did not even spare him a second glance. He pulled Eloise into his arms and turned to leave. The holy apostle could only stare at their retreating backs, a strange premonition chilling him to the bone. Fate is beginning to change. Back in her room, Friedrich gently set Eloise down on the bed. Looking down at her, he frowned deeply, full of worry. Do you feel unwell anywhere? He asked softly. Then a terrible thought struck him. Wait, could it be? She was breathing hard, her cheeks burning red. Friedrich, she whispered weakly. That bastard gave me some kind of drug. I can't get this heat to go down. Panic seized him instantly. Hold on, I'll call a doctor, he said, turning to go, but she suddenly reached out and grabbed his coat like a drowning woman clutching her last lifeline. Don't go, she cried. He froze in place, his body rigid with shock and confusion. A doctor can't help me. Her eyes shimmered with tears as she pleaded. You're the only one who can help me. With surprising strength, she yanked him down onto the bed. His mind went blank as his body crashed onto hers. What was happening? His heart pounded wildly in his chest, and heat rushed into his face. Calm down, he stammered, trying to push himself up. If you're like this now, you'll regret it later. But she had already lost her reason, her body burning with unnatural heat. At least, she murmured softly, her face close to his tonight. I don't want to hold back anymore. The world seemed to spin, and a soft, shaky breath escaped his lips. He completely lost his footing, his mind in chaos, and then her lips were already on his. It was an awkward, desperate kiss. When she pulled back slightly, A teasing smile curved on her lips. "Why are you so bad at kissing?" she whispered, her fingertips lightly tracing along his jaw. "I thought you'd be good at it." Friedrich's face burned even hotter with shame, his violet eyes wide with disbelief. He tried to push her away, but she seized his hand and pressed it against her chest. "Don't push me away," she said softly, her voice a dangerous mix of innocence and temptation. "It's not like you have any special feelings for me, right?" But even so, she coaxed, drawing closer again like this. She guided his hand, and he suddenly held his breath as a wave of heat swept through his whole body. A soft gasp slipped from her lips, and his hand instinctively tightened. "Looks like you're finally feeling it," she teased. "You don't even have to say anything. Your body reacts first. Just like this." His protest caught in his throat and never made it out. A suppressed, broken gasp escaped his throat, full of pleasure and despair. "Stop," he pleaded, but his body betrayed him. He involuntarily leaned into her touch. "Your reactions are so cute," she murmured seductively, her fingers beginning to undo the buttons of his vest. "Don't tell me this is your first time?" Her hand slipped beneath his shirt, and the touch sent a shudder down his spine. He clenched his teeth, unable to form even a complete sentence. After a moment, he barely managed to squeeze out, "Then, is this your first time too, Your Highness?" His voice was taut. Her fingers brushed across his bare skin, wandering lightly along the lines of his muscles, and a slow, wicked smile spread across her face. "Who knows? Why don't you find out for yourself?" Her eyes shone with resolve. "Go on." He closed his eyes and steadied his breathing as though making up his mind. "I'm ready, Eloise." He repeated her name in his heart like a prayer. The heat had almost become unbearable. "Hey, do you like this position?" she whispered against his ear, her hot breath brushing over it. His gloved hand moved to her throat, not to squeeze, but as if grasping for his last shred of sanity, desperately trying to confirm the pulse beneath his fingertips and anchor himself. A soft moan escaped her lips. He was on the verge of losing control completely. But at that exact moment, he stopped. Through the haze of desire, one thought pierced through. "This isn't her." "I'm sorry," he said in a low voice, heavy with suppressed regret. "I can't take you when you're like this." He gently pulled away and covered her with a blanket. "I'll get a doctor. Hold on a little longer." His legs trembling, he stood up, every muscle in his body protesting. His face was still hot, while his mind was a battlefield between duty and desire. He clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white, desperately suppressing the raging fire inside him as he stumbled out into the cold, empty corridor, and finally his knees gave out and he collapsed to the floor. "This is awful," he gasped, clutching his head in unbearable agony. The next morning, Eloise woke with a groan. My head hurts. This doesn't even feel like a hangover. It feels like it's splitting open." She noticed a bowl and a note on the table beside the bed. "It's medicine. Drink it." Her mind was blank. What exactly happened last night? She vaguely remembered being with Friedrich, but the details were all wrapped in fog. "No idea." She sighed. "I'll ask Friedrich later when I see him." She picked up the bowl and drank the medicine. Even if I cause trouble, he'll probably clean it up for me. After all, he was always so dependable. Meanwhile, in the garden, Friedrich looked as if he had just crawled back from death's door, surrounded by a grim and murky aura. "Good morning, Duke Priska." The servants greeted him nervously. "The Duke seems very busy lately. Surely you didn't work through the whole night? Honestly, your complexion looks terrible." All he could do was glare at them coldly. "It's all your fault," he thought, and the image of last night's devilish Eloise flashed through his mind, forcing him to cover his face in shame. "Good morning." A cheerful voice rang out. He jolted and looked up to see Eloise standing before him, bright-faced and refreshed. "I was just about to go look for you." "What a coincidence." Then she stepped a little closer, her expression turning serious. "After you went back to your room last night, nothing happened, right?" His heart leapt into his throat. "I was a little dizzy then, so I think I fell asleep right away. But I really don't remember anything." He turned his face away, his back stiff as a board, not daring to look at her at all. Nothing happened. At that moment, he felt her hand rest on his back. It was only a casual, friendly gesture, yet his whole body jolted, and a scorching red rapidly spread up his neck. Why is your face so red? Did you drink some kind of tonic?" she asked, tilting her head in genuine confusion. Morning light poured gently over the spotless tea set, the gold trim gleaming in the light. The holy apostle wore a calm expression, a smooth, gentle smile on his lips, and asked whether the crown prince had rested well. Then, in a tone of almost flawless politeness, he said, "You must be exhausted after the baptismal rite, but I heard you were looking for me." The richly dressed crown prince lifted a hand, signaling him to sit across from him. His voice was completely different from the coldness usually found in his eyes. The crown prince said he happened to have time to share a cup of tea with the holy apostle, and that there were also a few things he wished to ask him. The holy apostle's smile did not change in the slightest. He accepted the invitation gracefully, poured fragrant tea, and yet there was a faint probing undertone in his voice. "Is that so? I'm honored to be served such fine tea by your highness." A glint flashed in his eyes as he added, "But the medicine your highness usually takes must be very bitter, I imagine." How could he possibly know that? The crown prince's smile stiffened for only the briefest moment. This man saw too clearly. The holy apostle leaned forward slightly, his voice soft as though offering quiet comfort, saying that if there was any way he could help, he would do his best. The crown prince gave a soft laugh, almost like a sigh. As expected, nothing can escape the eyes of the holy apostle. He decided to stop going in circles. The game had to end. He needed answers. "Actually, I'm looking for someone, and it is connected to that matter. I need your help." The holy apostle's previously gentle expression vanished at once, replaced by a sharp, scrutinizing gaze. His deep green eyes, like an ancient forest, narrowed slightly, and he asked only one question that pressed heavily into the air. "Whom are you looking for?" The crown prince's expression grew heavy, his face carved with deep longing, as if in prayer, and yet like a curse. He spoke the name with almost desperate pleading. "Princess Setilo. I am looking for Eloise." A blade-sharp smile suddenly flashed across the holy apostle's lips. The unyielding, noble figure of the silver-haired knight crossed his mind for an instant. Ah, the Princess of Setilo. He lowered his gaze to his teacup, watching his reflection tremble faintly on the water's surface, his fingertips hovering lightly over the fine porcelain rim. "There's a way," he said softly. The crown prince's eyes flew open wide, disbelief and hope battling fiercely within them. His voice tightened with emotion, almost like a gasp. "Really? You really can find her?" The holy apostle slowly and calmly took a sip of tea, his expression serene and certain. "Yes." His voice held absolute conviction. "There is nothing in this world that cannot be solved, your highness." Just as the crown prince was about to press further, the chief attendant's voice broke the taut atmosphere, announcing that Duke Priska had urgent business and requested an audience. The crown prince looked mildly surprised, then permitted him to enter. Heavy, forceful footsteps echoed across the marble floor as Friedrich strode into the room. His sharp violet eyes immediately landed on the holy apostle, and surprise and displeasure flashed across his face. "He's here too." Ignoring the holy apostle, Friedrich spoke directly to the crown prince in a stiff tone. "You summoned me this early. What urgent matter is it?" Then his cold gaze turned to the holy apostle, his tone full of unmistakable dismissal. "This concerns military secrets. Holy apostle, would you mind stepping out for a moment?" The holy apostle's smile was a model of polite falsehood. "Of course," he said, rising elegantly from his seat. "Please, speak freely." But he did not leave it at that. No, this cunning man never stopped there. He walked to the door, then paused, and turned back with a look of concern. "Ah, that's right, your highness. I will be departing soon on a mission to spread the faith," he said, as if in passing. "So regarding what you asked just now, I'm afraid you may have to wait a little while." It was a delay and a test, but the crown prince was too desperate. In a voice full of earnest trust, he answered, "As long as you truly can find her, I can wait however long it takes. Truly, under this sky, the only person I can trust is you, holy apostle." Friedrich's hands at his sides clenched into fists at once. This scheming bastard, his thoughts churned violently. What exactly did this man do to the crown prince to win his trust so quickly? If only he could tear off that deceitful mask. He opened his mouth, wanting to report what had happened to Miss Anna last night, but the holy apostle cut him off again. "Forgive my interruption," he said, locking his eyes directly on the crown prince. "But before I leave, allow me to say one more thing. It will help you tame what you seek." He bent slightly, lowering his voice into something secretive and mysterious. when a human soul meets water, is cleansed most clearly. With a malicious smile, he added, just like your highness's baptism in the purification chamber. The crown prince seemed intrigued. Can you be more specific? He asked. The holy apostle only gave a low chuckle, then turned his sharp gaze toward the enraged duke. That is all I can say. Heaven's will cannot be disclosed. Wouldn't you agree, Duke Priska? His eyes were like splintered ice, carrying a silent, chilling warning. As one who dealt in matters of heaven, he continued in a very low voice, though the threat was clearly meant for Friedrich. In your words and actions, you should be as cautious as a holy man. Otherwise, you may invite divine punishment. Friedrich clenched his teeth so hard they hurt before forcing out through gritted teeth, "Thank you for your thoughtful advice, sir." Crown Prince Lias Cameron called, "Holy Apostle, please continue." But it was too late. The holy apostle had already turned and left, leaving only his final words echoing in the room. The rest is in your highness's hands. I shall take my leave. Later, as the royal party moved through the palace corridor, the holy apostle walked side by side with Friedrich. Leaning close, he spoke in a low voice only the duke could hear. You really do cherish your cousin. His gaze fell on Anna, who was walking arm in arm with the crown prince. Then all warmth vanished from his voice, replaced by deadly coldness. If you don't want to die, stay away from Anna. Friedrich jolted as if struck hard. What exactly was this man talking about? The holy apostle only wore an innocent smile. We merely shared a secret each, he said softly, then walked away first. By the time they reached the dining table, the tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Everyone was urged to take their seats. A determined light flashed in Eloise's eyes. Seizing the chance, she pulled out the chair beside Friedrich and plopped down into it. I'll sit here, she declared with a bright smile. Friedrich froze instantly, his whole face turning a startling red. He cleared his throat, not daring to look at her at all, completely at a loss over her bold move. Just as the maids began serving the dishes, Anna, wearing a fawning smile, presented a piece of meat to the crown prince. Your Highness, this is a dish I specially had the royal chef prepare for you. Please try it with this special sauce. The crown prince's smile stiffened a little. Meh, then I'll enjoy it, he said, though a vein was faintly twitching at his temple. But before he could take a bite, the holy apostle's smooth voice cut in. Given your highness's condition, vegetables would be far better than greasy meat. The crown prince's face suddenly went pale, and his body swayed slightly. Anna asked whether he was feeling unwell, but he waved her off irritably. It's nothing. Leave me alone. A gleam of satisfaction flashed through the holy apostle's eyes. He leaned forward slightly, his voice carrying clearly across the whole table. Your Highness's illness can be completely cured, so long as you receive the right help. A chorus of sharp gasps immediately rose around the table. What was he talking about? What illness? Friedrich finally could not endure it any longer. Under the table, he stomped hard on the holy apostle's foot and rebuked him in a low voice. I would appreciate it if you did not disturb His Highness with unverified speculation, holy apostle. Eloise whipped her head around, anger surging across her face. How dare this man? Friedrich, what are you talking about? The holy apostle was only offering advice out of concern for me. She snapped furiously, then lifted her leg and cleanly kicked Friedrich in the shin. The holy apostle remained unmoved and went on speaking in his obscure, hard-to-understand way. You can find it using the method I just mentioned, he said, a faint glimmer flickering in his eyes. The crown prince murmured softly, Is that so? The holy apostle replied, What we seek is always very close by. Just then, a nervous maid walked toward their table, and with a tiny movement so subtle it was almost impossible to notice, he stuck out his foot. The maid tripped at once, letting out a frightened scream as the plates and water pitcher flew from her hands. Watch out, Friedrich shouted, moving so fast he was like an afterimage. He lunged in front of Eloise and shielded her with his body. Cold water immediately splashed across his entire back and soaked his uniform. The table was a complete mess, covered in spilled water, with shattered porcelain everywhere. Friedrich glared at the trembling maid. Your Highness was only recently baptized. Please be careful not to let anything filthy splash on her. The holy apostle clicked his tongue in displeasure. How careless. The crown prince, already irritated by the repeated interruptions, slammed his palm down on the table. Get out now, he roared at the maid. The maid could only stammer an apology before fleeing in panic. A heavy, awkward silence fell over the dining hall, and in that silence, a memory surfaced in Eloise's mind, a memory from another life of another man. Richard, from the eastern lands, was a slave, desperately gulping down a mouthful of water. In the next instant, a whip cracked through the air and lashed savagely across his back with a sickening thud. A slave dares to dawdle? "Move, you bastard!" his master shrieked. "You useless trash! If I'd known you were this slow-witted, I never would have spent so much money buying you. Damn it!" Another slave hurried to his side. "General, are you all right?" Richard shook his head, his voice low and steady. "We're all in the same boat now. I'm only a slave. I've already cast aside the past, so there's no need to treat me with such respect anymore." As they walked, a faint glimmer appeared in the distance. His golden eyes sharpened instantly, like a hunter locking onto its prey. "Looks like there's a village over there. Tonight is the night," he declared. The memory faded, and Eloise returned to the carriage as its wheels rolled through a puddle. The Crown Prince sat beside her, muttering thoughtfully about the holy apostle's words. Water in the soul. Across from him, Angelina leaned forward slightly. "Your Highness, what are you thinking about so deeply? Please have some tea." He took the cup briefly and said, "Thank you." But at that moment, the carriage jolted violently. "Ah!" Angelina screamed as the scalding tea spilled all over her lap. "Ah, this is my favorite dress." The Crown Prince rolled his eyes inwardly, finding her reaction absurdly overdramatic. But Anna, riding beside the carriage, saw an opportunity. Perhaps this was the perfect chance to test whether a person's soul would reveal itself through water. The next moment, however, her thoughts were cut off. She and Friedrich both noticed movement ahead. Two figures were running across the fields, fleeing for their lives. Friedrich's trained instincts kicked in at once. He pulled on the reins and shouted, "Defensive formation." Anna stopped her horse as well, her heart pounding. What was going on? Her eyes widened in shock. She recognized the man running in front. That person was the fourth male supporting character from the original story. "I never thought I'd meet him here." Then, all at once, that complete and brutal memory came flooding back. 3 years after the fall of the Setilo kingdom, the original Eloise had become a slave, lying on a crude camp bed. Vulgar voices drifted in from outside the tent. "What's this? Is it that one's turn today?" Even a slave gets an opportunity like this. A heavy male body pressed down on her. She squeezed her eyes shut, her body limp, completely unresponsive. Her hand trembled as she was about to struggle again, but in the next second, the weight suddenly disappeared. Someone stood above her. It was Richard. He lay down beside her and whispered softly in the darkness, "Go to sleep. I'm the same as you." His warm breath brushed her ear as he spoke. "If you want to survive, sometimes you have to set your dignity aside. One day, the chance for revenge will come. So relax and sleep. I won't do anything to you." Revenge, she thought, her chest feeling as though a cold, lifeless stone were pressing on it. In this dark, stifling slave camp, would that day ever really come? Suddenly, the night was torn apart by chaos. The tent burst into flames, and she stood in a sea of fire, her ragged clothes lit by the greedy blaze. The heat scorched her skin, and she collapsed helplessly to the ground. Smoke poured into her lungs. So this is how it ends for me. Then, beyond the roaring flames, a figure came sprinting toward her. It was Richard. He grabbed her by the arm and said urgently, "Get up." She stared at him, eyes wide with shock. "Why?" she asked hoarsely. "Why are you going this far?" He did not answer, but a fierce light blazed in his eyes. "Escape. Survive. Then take your revenge. This is your chance." He scooped her up and ran, dodging burning beams crashing down around them. Arrows whistled through the smoke, and one of them drove deep into his back. "Put me down," she cried, struggling in his arms. "Don't mind me. Run for your own life." He let out a muffled groan of pain, but his arms only tightened around her. "It's all right. Just hold on to me. I saw the look in your eyes. You want to live." Suddenly, someone shouted in the darkness, "Over there!" A rain of arrows flew toward them, and 2 more arrows slammed viciously into Richard's back. His body swayed, his strength nearly spent, yet he forced himself onward through sheer willpower. At last, he could hold out no longer, and the 2 of them crashed heavily to the ground together. Her hand sank into a pool of warm liquid. It was his blood. She looked at him, her heart feeling as though it were being torn apart. Using the last of his strength, he summoned a soft, ethereal glow into his hand and gently touched her cheek. "Enough. You have to live," he said quietly. His hand fell limply, and his body went still beside her. "Richard," Eloise murmured now, staring fixedly at the man desperately running for his life. I remember that name. She snapped back to herself just in time to see the slave master raise his bow. You really think a slave can escape from his master? He roared, loosing the arrow. It shot out fast and true, but a silver flash cut through the air. A long sword sliced the arrow cleanly in half before it could hit. The slave master stared in disbelief. The one who had intercepted the arrow was the silver-haired knight. Stand back, unless you want to get hurt, Anna warned coldly and calmly. She leveled her sword at the man. I'm taking these two. Her gaze turned even more resolute. Richard, I'm definitely bringing you under my command. I'm a knight of the Imperial Knight Order, she said sharply. While I'm still being polite, step back at once. The man let out a sneer, his face twisted with rage. You think you could just steal my slaves like that? Eloise's patience finally ran out, and the tip of her sword moved closer to his throat, the sharp steel gleaming coldly in the sunlight. Do you only understand once blood is spilled? Get lost. The air grew so taut it seemed ready to explode, and the whole world around them felt as if it had stopped breathing. Then an arrow tore through the air with a deadly shriek. That arrow was clearly meant to kill, but before it could hit its target, it was blocked by a cold, unyielding sword. Anna stood firm, silver hair whipping in the wind, her eyes full of stubborn defiance. With a flick of her wrist, the wooden shaft shattered. I won't say a second time. Move, she growled. But the disgusting slave trader only sneered, his face contorted with fury. So even a woman doesn't know her place, huh? Hey, you over there, he bellowed, pointing a filthy finger at her. Behind her, the young man she was protecting, Richard, stared at the scene in confusion, eyes wide. Why would this knight go this far for them? Anna met the slave trader's vicious gaze, her voice colder than ice. That is none of your concern. She said it cleanly, tightening her grip on the hilt of her sword. Just as the fat merchant was about to explode in fury, a new voice cut through the tension, calm and cold as a winter morning. Why is such a disturbance broken out while His Highness the Crown Prince's carriage is passing through? A man stepped out from the crowd, and his mere presence instantly silenced the entire street. He had hair as white as snow and sharp violet eyes, the very image of nobility and power. He walked to Anna's side and blocked the merchant's furious glare, his posture silently declaring that if the man dared say one more word, the consequences would be unbearable. If you have something to say, he said in a low, dangerously cold voice, say it to me. He paused deliberately for a moment before delivering the final blow. I am Duke Friedrich Priska. The name struck the merchant like a hammer. Friedrich Priska. The angry flush drained from the man's face in an instant, leaving behind only terrified pallor. Cold sweat poured from his forehead as he stammered. I must have misunderstood something. If I'd known you were the Duke, let alone 2 slaves, I'd have given you 10. But Friedrich's expression did not soften in the slightest. No, his eyes flashed faintly. You must pay the price. He threw a heavy pouch of gold coins at the man's feet. I'm buying these 2 slaves. The merchant immediately pounced on the bag of gold, his fear replaced at once by greed. It is my honor, he exclaimed loudly. Richard and his companions stared at everything in disbelief. They were free. Without saying another word, both of them dropped to their knees. They bowed their heads to thank the Duke and said in unison, From this day forward, we will honor you as our master and follow you unto death. But Friedrich's sharp violet eyes corrected them at once. It was not I who saved you. His gaze shifted to the woman standing nearby. It was Knight Anna. If you want to give thanks, thank her. Anna silently watched the scene before her. Richard suddenly lifted his head, his eyes locking onto her. Master, he cried, practically crawling forward before kneeling at her feet. I offer you all my loyalty. Faced with this solemn vow, Anna merely gestured toward his wound. Wrap the bandages first. Come here. Her voice was a little gentler now as she began treating his injuries. Friedrich stood a short distance away, watching them, a complicated emotion flashing through his eyes before he turned and left. Later, the Crown Prince leaned back in the carriage, his sly green eyes narrowing slightly with a faint smile at his lips. What is it? He asked Friedrich. Nothing important. I only brought back 2 injured slaves. The Crown Prince raised a brow slightly. That doesn't sound like something you'd normally concern yourself with. Friedrich's face did not change. If it displeases your highness, I will deal with it as you command. The Crown Prince gave a short laugh. You're always so serious. I was only speaking casually. Let's go. Night fell over the ducal estate, and a light knock sounded against a wooden door. Who is it? Richard's voice came from inside. The door creaked open, and he immediately held his breath. It was her, Anna, in the dim light. She was almost unreal in her beauty. He unconsciously reached out, and his fingertips brushed hers by accident as she stepped inside. "Can I speak with you for a while?" she asked softly. After entering the small room, she poured him a cup of warm tea. "Relax." She noticed how tense he was. "I just came to talk to you." His heart pounded hard in his chest. This woman, his savior, his master. He swore he would never forget all she had done for him. "I will never forget the grace you have shown me," he said. "Whatever command you give, I will carry it out." She smiled faintly. "You sound very confident, even though you don't yet know what I want you to do." She gently lifted his chin, forcing him to look directly at her. An indescribable tension filled the air. "What do you want from me?" he asked in a low voice, already completely drawn in by her. Her eyes were extremely serious now. "I heard some things from your companion," she said in a lowered voice, as if sharing a secret. "You were once a noble, but because of an accident, you lost your memory. If you do what I ask, well, I can give you an army, give you medicine, and even return everything you once had." His eyes widened. Everything he once had? Then what exactly did she want from him in exchange? "So, what do I need to do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Her gaze was sharp, and her words were sharper. "Don't just be my servant. Become my sword and clear away every obstacle in my path." He hesitated briefly. Why was she so certain he would accept? A calm, confident smile appeared at her lips. "You do not have many choices, do you?" He lowered his head and looked at the tattered clothes on his body as the weight of reality came crashing down on him. She was right. No one wanted to be a slave for life. So what would he choose? In that instant, he already had his answer. He knelt before her, took her foot in his hands, and pressed his lips to the top of her shoe, a gesture of absolute submission. "I swear with all my heart," he said, his voice slightly hoarse with emotion, "I will serve you as I would serve my queen." When he raised his head, his eyes burned with unshakable resolve. At the same time, Duke Friedrich had just returned to the estate. The butler came forward to greet him, but what he said immediately filled the Duke with irritation. "What did you say?" "She went to that slave's room." The butler nodded heavily. "It is already very late, and she still has not come out. What if rumors begin to spread?" As he spoke, he gestured toward the maids, whispering among themselves in the corridor. Friedrich let out a long, irritated sigh, the vein at his temple faintly throbbing. That woman was going to be the death of him someday. When Anna finally returned to her room, she was surprised to find Friedrich standing there. He was standing with his back to her. "Friedrich, what are you doing in my room?" He turned around, his violet eyes sweeping over her face. "I was waiting for you," he said flatly. "It seems the transformation potion is wearing off. Your face has already returned to Princess Eloise's." His gaze sharpened abruptly. "You didn't let that slave see your face, did you?" Anna froze for a moment, surprised by his sudden concern. "What? Now you're suddenly responding to me. Weren't you pretending not to see me this morning?" He looked away, the back of his neck reddening slightly. "Teach, that's because last night." He broke off halfway and cleared his throat. "Because of last night what?" she pressed, clearly curious now. "Forget it," he muttered under his breath, turning his face away again. But just as she was about to keep questioning him, a sudden sharp pain struck his chest. "Ugh!" He let out a muffled groan, clutching at his heart as he staggered. "What's wrong?" she cried, and rushed over to support him. He gritted his teeth, and cold sweat quickly beaded across his forehead. "My chest. That illness is acting up again." He collapsed against her, his body trembling slightly. "Don't move. Stay just like this," she said, pressing her hand firmly against his chest. A soft, warm light slowly shone from her palm and flowed into his body. The pain began to ease little by little, replaced by a comforting warmth. "Is it better now?" she asked steadily. He let out a trembling breath, his forehead resting against her shoulder. "It'll get better with time. You can stop." But she knew perfectly well that it was not that simple. In the original story, it had been written that the deeper the contact, the stronger and more effective the healing would be. "This is purely for treatment," she told herself firmly. "Friedrich, don't yell at me afterward." She grabbed his chin and turned his face toward hers. "What are you?" he began, his eyes still full of shock, but she had already sealed his lips with hers. The world around them seemed to melt into a soft, warm glow. She pinned him against the wall and kissed him more deeply. If you want the symptoms to ease, she whispered against his lips, then stay still and behave. The kiss was gentle and deliberate, a transfer of healing power, yet it still left both of them breathing unsteadily. Meanwhile, far away in the imperial palace, another scheme was brewing. The crown prince sat in a luxurious hall, surrounded by a group of hooded mages. "Your Highness, why have you summoned us?" one of them asked. The crown prince tapped his chin with a finger, his green eyes faintly glinting. "I called you here because I wanted your opinion. Is there any spell for which water can be used as a means of verification?" The mages exchanged glances. "Do you mean, if someone who has taken a transformation potion comes into contact with water, they will return to their original appearance?" In the crown prince's mind flashed the image of Anna avoiding splashing water. "A transformation potion," he murmured thoughtfully. "Now that I think about it." Anna did seem particularly concerned with avoiding water. His eyes slowly narrowed, full of suspicion. "Could it be? Knight Anna." A cold smile spread across his lips. "At the banquet in the Imperial Palace the day after tomorrow, I want a special gift prepared for everyone. All of you, make sure to prepare something related to water." The mages bowed in understanding of his malicious intent, and spheres of water began forming in their palms. Back in the room, the healing kiss finally ended. Friedrich's face was bright red, his expression dazed as he leaned heavily against Anna. Anna stepped back, a playful smile appearing on her lips, though her own cheeks were flushed as well. "Do you feel better now?" Avoiding her gaze, he murmured softly, "To be honest, a little still." She raised a brow. "Really? Your complexion's already recovered. So where does it still hurt?" He took hold of her hand, the red on his face deepening. "Let me touch your hand first." She stared blankly as he pressed her palm to his cheek. Has his head still not cooled down? What is wrong with him? She thought in confusion. It wasn't like he'd been cursed. He looked more like he'd taken the wrong medicine. Then he guided her hand to his chest as well, where his heartbeat was astonishingly fast. "It feels tight here too." Had she somehow failed to heal his heart? Following his lead, she asked sweetly, "Do you want deeper contact? Should I kiss you again?" He closed his eyes lightly, his voice low and hoarse. "If you're willing." She leaned in close and said teasingly, "It's no trouble at all. It's not like it was the first time, or even the second." She smiled. "Helping you is perfectly normal, isn't it?" "Not necessarily." Suddenly, he opened his eyes and grabbed her in one swift motion, his hold steady and possessive, brooking no refusal. The atmosphere changed completely in an instant. "You've already gone this far," he said, his voice dropping lower. "So next, it's my turn." He kissed her fiercely, and this time there was not a trace of gentleness left. It was an utterly blazing kiss, completely undisguised, leaving her whole mind reeling. It was as if he had suddenly become a different person. She thought hazily, "Is this a side effect of the curse?" "Pay attention," he whispered against her lips, his fingers sliding into her hair. "You're unusually eager today. Why won't you open your mouth?" And in his mind, all that remained was a storm of chaotic, surging sensation. The closer he got, the more violently his emotions surged. He deepened the kiss, plundering and devouring her with near-desperate hunger. "I want to know her more deeply." That was what he thought, as reason and desire clashed fiercely within him. Should I really let myself be drawn to this woman, who might be poison to me? Stumbling together, they fell, their limbs tangled as they crashed onto the floor. Panting, he pulled back. "Isn't this enough?" he asked in a tight voice. But the symptoms had not completely subsided yet. She was more persistent than usual today. It had to be because of the curse. He tried to use that as an excuse for the overwhelming desire raging inside him, then bent down and kissed her again. The next morning, sunlight streamed into Friedrich's room. He sat up in bed, a faintly satisfied smile at the corner of his lips. From beyond the courtyard came the ringing sound of blades striking each other. Anna was training with Richard. Richard was bare-chested, sweat gleaming across his skin. "You learn fast." She praised him, even giving his well-defined chest an approving pat. Richard immediately broke into a radiant grin and proudly flexed his muscles. Watching them from the balcony, Friedrich felt a strange emotion rise inside him, mixed with a touch of amusement and something else. "You're both lively this early in the morning." He glanced down at himself. "I've been training my body diligently, too." Would you like to feel for yourself? With newfound resolve, he picked up a wooden sword and headed down the stairs. Wait, calling out as he walked toward them, he made his approach. Anna looked at him in surprise. What's this? Why are you suddenly carrying a wooden sword? A sly, teasing glint flashed through her eyes. Do you have something to say? We're training right now. She deliberately leaned playfully against Richard's side, clearly provoking the Duke. Friedrich's face immediately flushed red with irritation. With so many people watching, Anna, it would be better if you were more cautious. If rumors spread about improper conduct, it will damage the family's reputation. But Richard stepped forward and protectively wrapped an arm around Anna's waist. I am a lady subordinate. It is only natural for a master to command her subordinate and keep him by her side. What exactly is your grace worried about? The instant the two men locked eyes, the air crackled with tension. Friedrich's voice turned cold and severe. This is not a marketplace. As a noble, you should know how to read the room, understand what others are thinking, and restrain yourself. Anna, I'll say this again, do not forget your status. He looked at her meaningfully. Remember that every action you take represents the family. Anna sighed and stepped between the two men. I'm very careful when I'm outside, but Richard is practically part of our household now, isn't he? Don't be so guarded. Over her shoulder, Richard shot Friedrich a smug smile. Yes, your grace. I'll be mindful of my conduct. Since milady says so, you should put your heart at ease. The unspoken provocation pressed heavily into the morning air. It was a silent declaration of war between two men vying for Anna's attention. The Duke's voice was low and arrogant, full of noble disdain. You certainly are insolent. Folding his arms, he looked down at Richard from above and sneered. Did your former master never teach you how to treat those above you? But Richard did not even flinch. His gaze remained steady, his voice calm. What I learned is that a slave obeys only his own master. The unspoken meaning hung heavily in the air. And you're not my master. A self-satisfied and irritating smile curled at the Duke's lips. Oh, he sounded amused. You really are an interesting man. His tone was that of someone examining a curious new pet. Caught between them, Anna felt a headache coming on. The air was thick with masculine hostility, an invisible clash flowing between the Duke and her loyal slave. Anna had had enough. She raised a hand and briskly cut off their stare-down. Don't waste your energy on this first thing in the morning. She gave the order, then turned to Richard. Go wait over there first. I need to speak with the Duke. Richard's dark eyes lingered on her for a moment before he lowered his head. Yes, master. He turned and walked away, though his back remained stiff. As soon as he left, Anna focused all her attention on Friedrich. A dangerous, playful light gleamed in her eyes as she stepped closer, invading his personal space. Her voice was a soft murmur. You don't seem like a duke at all today. She smiled as she teased him. Don't tell me you're jealous. She leaned even closer, her breath brushing lightly against his skin. Or was yesterday's soothing not enough? Friedrich looked as though he had been struck over the head. In an instant, it was as if he were no longer standing under the sun. Memory surged over him like a scorching wave. Her face had been so close, her breath filling his senses, and his body had betrayed him. His mind desperately denied it. No, that was only because of the curse. The memory was vivid enough to be shameful. When her hand touched him, it had only been a gentle contact meant to ease the pain of the curse. Yet it had turned his whole world upside down. He remembered his coat falling to the floor, remembered the rush of heat through his body when she pinned him against the wall. His breathing caught, and his fingers clutched tightly at her sleeve. Or perhaps at his own shirt, anything to steady himself. A tear of unbearable shame slipped from the corner of his eye. Pure, untainted pleasure suddenly shot through his entire body, forcing a cry from his lips. His knees gave out, and he collapsed on the spot. But what had she done? She had looked down at him, and there had been no desire in her eyes, only a scholar's calm, detached curiosity. Even now, he could still hear her composed, analytical voice in his ears. You're pretty sensitive, aren't you? That's quite a nice response. She had even shamelessly given him a playful wink, as if he were nothing more than an interesting test subject. The memory made heat rise to his face again, leaving him feeling as though he wanted to shrink into himself. How humiliating, he wailed inwardly. The worst part was, she did not even remember what had happened that night. I'm the only one who's been thrown into turmoil over it. And his voice yanked him back to reality. What's wrong? Don't tell me you've started to like me. Friedrich shuddered, his cheeks burning scarlet. It's not like that, he stammered, looking away, his neck flushing red as well. He took a deep breath and forced himself to meet her gaze, his expression so serious it was almost resolute. Since something like that happened, I intend to take responsibility for you. Anna froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. No way. You're way too innocent. That was just treatment. Why are you taking it so seriously? Before he could even process her words, she leaned in and gently cupped his face in her hands. A real kiss, she murmured softly, her lips brushing lightly across his, is done like this. In the distance, Richard went rigid, his eyes widening in shock. They were definitely not just ordinary cousins. Anna pulled back, her eyes full of mischievous amusement. Scared you? She looked at the Duke, who seemed utterly petrified, his whole face flushed bright red. I'm not giving it any special meaning, so don't feel pressured either. She poked his cheek with a finger. Why are you so stiff? All he could manage was a strangled, huh? As she turned around, her gaze landed on Richard, who was still standing by the tree. You're still here? She asked as she walked toward him. He nodded, his expression hard to read. Yes, I was waiting for you, Master. Still, he could not help asking, his voice tense. You too. Are you that kind of relationship? He ran a hand through his hair, looking deeply troubled. Anna merely smiled and waved a hand casually. Haha, what are you talking about? We were just whispering. But as she passed by him, Friedrich and Richard met each other's gaze over her shoulder. A declaration of war passed silently between them. Richard was the first to look away, turning instead to give Anna a smile that did not truly reach his eyes. Ah, right. You said you wanted to learn how to use this country's weapons, didn't you? His hand settled possessively on her shoulder. If I could teach you myself, Master, it would be my honor. As he spoke, his gaze flicked once more toward the Duke. He smoothly drew his sword. Then let's start with swordsmanship. Anna smiled, completely unaware of the dangerous undercurrent of tension. Friedrich, meanwhile, stood there alone, more dejected than ever. Just then, the butler appeared. Your Grace, someone has come from the palace and is waiting in the drawing room. Friedrich's expression instantly turned cold. I understand. I'll go change first. With that, he strode away. In the drawing room, a royal messenger handed over a black and gold invitation. To commemorate the completion of the baptism, the palace will be holding a ball. The messenger made the announcement. His Highness has sent this invitation and hopes that both your Grace and Lady Anna will attend. Friedrich accepted it calmly. I understand. I will gladly attend. After the messenger left, the butler voiced his concern. His Highness the Crown Prince may have other intentions. Friedrich's gaze grew distant. I know, he said quietly, but this is also an opportunity for her. A trace of determination flashed through his eyes. Call her over. I have good news to tell her. When Anna arrived, Friedrich explained the situation and handed her the invitation. Her eyes lit up. Great. She clenched the invitation happily. This time, I'll definitely be able to slip in without trouble. Meanwhile, a sinister scene was unfolding inside the palace. The Crown Prince watched as the mages poured power into a glowing red orb. More. He gave the order, a cruel smile on his face. More, force out every last bit of magic, so everyone can share in its blessing. Behind a hidden door, a violet-haired woman watched them, her face pale with worry. She clutched a similar orb to her chest, except hers was blue. I should have told you beforehand, she murmured under her breath, weighed down by a foreboding sense of dread. A few days later, the night of the ball arrived. Friedrich stood before his desk, holding a familiar wooden box. A warm, yet heartbreaking memory surfaced. His mother had handed him that box with a gentle voice. Inside lay a magnificent pearl necklace, set at the center with a lustrous pink gem. My child, keep this with you, she had once said. One day, you will meet the person you love. Place this around her neck. That person will be the one you must protect for the rest of your life. Protect for the rest of his life. Eloise's figure flashed through his mind. Her radiant smile, the lingering warmth her lips had left on his skin. His hand tightened slightly around the wooden box. A quiet but unshakable resolve settled in his heart. That's right. The only one who can protect her is me. He found her in her room, already prepared for the ball. She looked up and smiled at him, dazzling in a deep violet gown. For a moment, he nearly forgot how to breathe. Now, his heart thundered. I have to let everyone know that she belongs to me. He walked toward her. You're already perfectly prepared, but one thing is still missing. He opened the box, revealing the necklace inside, and gently, almost reverently, fastened it around her neck. The necklace rested perfectly against her skin, the gems seeming to glow softly from within. Now it's perfect. Her fingers lightly touched the gem. This isn't just an ordinary necklace, is it? She asked, looking at him. It feels like it has a special meaning to you. A rare, gentle smile appeared on his lips. The moment it was placed around your neck, it became special. As the carriage slowly departed, Richard stood on the steps of the estate watching them leave, his face shadowed. They arrived at the brilliantly illuminated imperial palace. Dressed in formal military uniform, Friedrich carried the imposing dignity of a powerful duke in every movement. He extended his hand, and Anna stepped out of the carriage with his support, elegant and breathtakingly beautiful. The moment they entered the venue, the crown prince was already there waiting. "You've come, Friedrich." As he spoke, his gaze immediately fell on Anna. "Anna, you look stunning tonight." She returned a polite but distant smile. But the crown prince did not retreat. "Then, in return for all the effort you put into tonight, allow me to be your partner for the dance." Friedrich immediately stepped forward, placing himself between Anna and the prince. "Your Highness, since you already have a fiancée, it would be more appropriate for you to remain by her side. After all, many eyes are watching." The crown prince's smile was as sharp as a blade. He moved around Friedrich and seized Anna's hand. "I'm already the ruler of this nation," he declared loudly, his voice carrying through the garden. "Who would dare contradict me?" At Friedrich's side, his hand clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The crown prince lifted Anna's hand to his lips, his eyes full of possessiveness and a victor's pride. "Tonight," he murmured softly, his voice brushing over her like a command. "Stay by my side." A chilling light gleamed in his green eyes. The surrounding nobles began whispering among themselves. Anna abruptly yanked her hand back. Her face was covered in undisguised disgust. "Disgusting," she thought coldly, icy fury flashing in her eyes. The crown prince's smile faltered slightly. "What's wrong?" he asked, a dangerous edge entering his voice. "You're not thinking of defying your ruler's will, are you?" He stepped closer, trapping her. Anna did not back down in the slightest, standing straight with her chin raised. "Of course not. It's just that everyone is watching, and I'm already doing my best to restrain myself." The crown prince let out a low laugh, seeming to enjoy her resistance. But in the next instant, a hand shot out and grabbed Anna's arm. She let out a startled cry as she was violently pulled backward. She staggered away from the crown prince. It was Friedrich. He dragged her tightly into his arms, his arm like iron around her waist. The sudden movement sent water splashing out of the fountain. The crown prince raised a brow, and his smile returned, wider than before and far more dangerous. He watched them with gleaming interest in his eyes. Anna's heart pounded like a drum. "What is this? Why does it feel like he's testing me?" A chill swept through her. Could it be he knows something? The crown prince's gaze bore down on her like a silent interrogation. "Anna, what will you do? Will you throw yourself into my arms? But Friedrich made the choice for her. His expression churned with naked emotion, anger, possessiveness, and reckless desperation. He stepped forward decisively, cupped her face in both hands, and kissed her hard on the lips. A wave of shocked gasps immediately erupted from the crowd. The cold smile vanished from the crown prince's face, replaced by pure, violent fury. The nobles were all stunned into silence, mouths hanging open. What in the world was happening? It felt as though the whole world had suddenly flipped over, gold and purple blurring before her eyes into a dazzling haze. Friedrich wrapped an arm around Anna and held her tightly against his chest. Time seemed to stretch endlessly before snapping back into place. With a soft thud, they landed on the neatly trimmed lawn. Nearby, the sound of the fountain suddenly seemed astonishingly loud. Another collective cry of shock rose from the crowd. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Oh my God," someone shrieked. "His Highness must be mortified," another said with gleeful malice. Anna's mind went completely blank, filled with nothing but pure panic. She was still clutching Friedrich's leg, her face buried deep in the fabric of his trousers. From the corner of her eye, she saw a beautiful woman in a pink gown standing beside the crown prince, her expression a mixture of shock and concern. "Are you all right?" the woman asked the crown prince, her voice full of worry. But the crown prince only gave an irritated huff. Friedrich gently helped Anna to her feet, his movements steady and warm. Her face was burning red as she stammered out an apology in a voice so soft it was barely audible, admitting that she had not meant to cause such a huge commotion. But Friedrich simply smiled, his gaze soft. He told her it was fine, that after everything they had already been through, there was nothing left to be shy about. After everything they had been through? What exactly did he mean by that? That night flashed through her mind in an instant. The closeness, the heat. Before she could react, he lifted his hand and gently wiped something from the corner of her mouth with his thumb. He told her not to move. Her makeup had smudged. The touch was far too intimate and in front of so many eyes, making her shiver all over again. He was talking about that day, wasn't he? Did he mean their accidental kiss? Anna's heart pounded so hard it felt ready to break through her ribs, but Friedrich looked perfectly composed. He only smiled at her and asked whether she wanted to go inside now. The surrounding murmurs still buzzed on, but he ignored them completely. It was just a kiss. Did everyone really have to make such a big fuss? A trace of stubbornness rose in her. Fine. If he could stay that calm, then so could she. She reached out and took the hand he offered, her expression returning to its usual cool calm. Let's go. As they walked away, the rumors followed behind them. Aren't they cousins? In this country, cousins can marry, but they don't look like family at all. One young lady complained in disappointment. No way. I have my eye on him too. Meanwhile, the Crown Prince's companion, Lady Rosalia, coyly looped her arm through his and said that now he could take her inside instead. The Crown Prince curved his lips, a calculating light flashing through his eyes. He thanked her and promised that he would make sure she enjoyed herself tonight. As they entered the grand ballroom, jewels glittered everywhere and silk hems rustled all around them. They were immediately stopped by a short, stout man with an extravagant beard. Your Grace, the Baron greeted Friedrich. When he noticed Anna, his eyes widened in surprise. He remarked that it was rare to see the Duke attending with a partner. Friedrich merely smiled faintly, about to introduce Anna, but she was so flustered by the sudden attention that she hurriedly hid behind him. Seeing her shyness, the Baron laughed. But when Friedrich leaned in and said in a low voice meant only for the other man to hear that she would become his wife, the Baron's laughter died in his throat. The Baron was so shocked that his jaw nearly dropped. You mean to say that you and... Friedrich immediately raised a finger to his lips, signaling for silence. He said quietly that it was still a secret for the time being, since he had not even proposed to the lady yet. Later, while Friedrich was occupied elsewhere, Anna tried to find a quiet corner to stay in, but trouble still came looking for her. A group of noble ladies were whispering among themselves with little attempt at concealment, their eyes repeatedly darting her way. So that's the woman who supposedly kissed the Duke? One of them said with open contempt. Looking at her now, there's really nothing that's special about her. Another sneered. They convinced themselves that the kiss had to be nothing more than an accident, taking Anna for some coarse girl from the countryside, most likely the Duke's cousin. Their voices grew louder and their words sharper and harsher, until Anna's patience finally ran out. The moment she lifted her eyes to look at them, the blonde woman with the sharp features at their head immediately snapped and demanded to know who Anna thought she was staring at so rudely. She introduced herself as Arya, daughter of Count Edmund. A mocking smile curled at Anna's lips as she replied coldly that gossiping about others behind their backs did not make them any more noble. Arya and her friends all sucked in a breath at once, their faces twisting with anger. What did you just say? Arya shrieked, her face distorted with rage. Just because the Duke is backing you, you can't even see who you really are anymore? Know your place. My place, Anna asked back, her calm voice carrying a dangerous edge. Then what exactly is my place? Surely you know better than I do. Hasn't your father's family already fallen into ruin? Aren't you only surviving by relying on your mother's side? Arya's face first went white, then flushed red with fury. She straightened proudly and boasted that her father was Count Edmund, second in standing only to the house of Ducas itself. Then she leaned in and, in a low voice as poisonous as venom, asked Anna who was truly more worthy of the Duke. Count Edmund. That name abruptly stirred a corner of Anna's memory. In the original story, he had been nothing more than an insignificant background figure, a pitiful dependent with no presence at all while the former king was still alive. In the end, he had even betrayed the country to save himself. One impressive man, wasn't he? Anna's gaze turned cold. Count Edmund's betrayal was common knowledge throughout the entire kingdom. Looking Arya straight in the eye, she spoke in a voice that cut through the clamor of the ballroom. And yet you stand here without a shred of shame, acting as if you have every right to. I suppose that makes sense, considering you're a traitor's daughter. Arya froze, and the fan in her hand clattered to the floor. What did you just say? She stammered. Was I wrong? Anna continued mercilessly. With the same blood as your father running through your veins, will you someday do the same thing to the Duke? For a moment, Arya could not answer, her face full of rage and humiliation. Gritting her teeth, she spat that she should never have wasted words on a commoner, and that for the Duke's sake, she would let it go this time. But just as she turned to leave, she threw back one final threat without looking over her shoulder. If I run into you again, you'd better be ready. Just as the vicious woman stormed away, a sweet voice called Anna's name. It was Princess Angelina. She was as beautiful as ever, but her face was clouded with obvious unease. She praised Anna first, and Anna returned the courtesy politely. Then the princess stepped closer, twisting her hands together nervously, and said she had something very important to tell Anna, something she absolutely needed to know at tonight's ball. Fear filled her eyes as she whispered urgently, "You must be careful at the ball." Before Anna could ask what she meant, the herald's booming voice rang through the hall, announcing that the honored guests should now enter with their respective partners and begin the first dance. Princess Angelina hurriedly murmured an apology and rushed off, leaving Anna utterly confused. Anna merely gave her a playful wink in return, pretending nothing was wrong. But just as she turned around, Arya Edmund deliberately slammed her shoulder hard into Anna's, as though carrying out some childish revenge. Then the woman swayed gracefully as she walked straight toward Friedrich, the expression on her face instantly turning syrupy and affected. "Duke Priska," she said in a sweet voice, "I've been watching you from afar all this time." She even shamelessly declared that he seemed to have been staring at her the whole while, as if he were just about to invite her to dance. And she, naturally, had every intention of accepting. Friedrich looked completely bewildered, unable to make sense of what was happening, but before he could even respond, Anna calmly stepped between them. A radiant, confident smile bloomed across her face as she tilted her head up at Friedrich. "Would you dance with me?" Her voice was clear and bold. A flicker of pleasantly surprised delight crossed Friedrich's face, followed at once by a warm and sincere smile. "Of course," he said, taking her hand. Left standing there, Arya gaped at them, stammering that a woman asking a man to dance first was absolutely unheard of. Anna paused, turned back, and glanced at the trembling, furious woman. "If all you do is wait for others to choose you," she said coldly, "then people will only take you for granted. You should learn to seize what you want for yourself." After throwing out that merciless line, she let Friedrich lead her toward the dance floor. At once, the violins swelled, pouring their beautiful, flowing melody through the entire hall. The two of them slipped naturally into the steps of a waltz, spinning and gliding across the polished floor as if they were a single body, more graceful and dazzling than any other pair of dancers. As they turned, his hand rested steadily against the small of her back. Friedrich leaned close and murmured that he had expected her dancing to be as stiff as her personality. To his surprise, Anna only smiled up at him. This was hardly the only thing she could do. He simply had not known it. At the far end of the hall, the Crown Prince sipped his wine as he watched them, his expression impossible to read. And just as the music faded, the Crown Prince clapped his hands, drawing everyone's attention to him. He thanked the guests for coming, then snapped his fingers dramatically. Suddenly, a fine mist began drifting down from the ceiling. The Crown Prince announced loudly, "I specially asked the priest to prepare holy water, so that blessings may fall upon all of you like rain." The crowd instantly burst into cheers, stretching out their hands to welcome the miraculous shower. But for Anna and Friedrich, it was a disaster, a trap. Shock flashed through Friedrich's eyes, and almost instinctively he yanked Anna into his arms, shielding her with his own body. This had been laid out by the Crown Prince from the start. Friedrich quickly threw his heavy ducal cloak over her, trying to cover every inch of her from head to toe, plunging her into darkness and the scent of his cologne. But it was already too late. As he pulled her away from the center of the ballroom, the tip of her shoe and the hem of her skirt had already touched the puddle of blessed holy water on the floor. Pure fear pierced straight through her. "Damn it, I could touch the water." Her chest tightened so hard she could barely breathe. "Are you all right?" Friedrich's voice was taut with worry. She looked up at him, pale-faced, and said under her breath, "The tip of my shoe touched the water." And at the top of the grand staircase, the Crown Prince looked down at them, a pleased and chilling smile slowly spreading across his face. Friedrich, malice flickered through his mind. You really do care deeply about your cousin. But what does that matter? Soon enough, you will have to marry Count Edmund's daughter, and when that happens, Anna will surely be heartbroken. Standing not far away, Arya Edmund seized the moment. With a snap, she closed her fan and raised her voice to make sure the entire hall could hear. Ah, everyone heard that, didn't they? I'm the only one qualified to become Duke Priska's fiancée. She even gestured toward the Crown Prince. Even His Highness has acknowledged it. Friedrich's jaw tightened, and in a voice as cold as steel he declared to the inner hall, Our House of Priska has never received any formal notice regarding such a marriage. His gaze swept over Arya, making no attempt to hide the contempt within it. Even if such a discussion once existed, the other party could never possibly be the Edmund family. The triumph on Arya's face shattered instantly. The Crown Prince's smile vanished, replaced by a dangerous chill. Are you saying that you intend to defy the sovereign's command? He pressed. The entire hall fell deathly silent. Then, accompanied by a cold metallic rasp, Friedrich drew his sword. Anna sucked in a sharp breath. What was he doing? I have no intention of defying the sovereign's command, Friedrich said firmly, each word landing with force. But the House of Priska is not a tool for the expansion of power. He raised the sword high, light flashing across the polished blade. Even if it means surrendering my title here and now, I, Friedrich, will never accept a marriage without love. Arya's eyes widened in terror, her face full of disbelief. The Crown Prince's expression darkened completely with suppressed fury. But Lady Rosalia, still linked to the Crown Prince's arm, let out a dreamy sigh. What a charming man. No wonder women fall for him. She looked up at the Crown Prince, her eyes wide and earnest. Then, Your Highness, please grant your loyal subject this sincere wish. Isn't everyone curious to see how this marriage matter will end? The Crown Prince's lips twisted into a cruel smile. Of course, he said in a smooth tone bordering on falsehood. Then speak your wish here, before everyone present. He gestured in Anna's direction. The only woman I want is standing before me. At once, Friedrich stepped forward and placed himself in front of Anna, shielding her. Friedrich, the Crown Prince sneered, I truly didn't expect you to go this far for a woman. Since the beauty you chose is here, she ought to say something too. Friedrich is willing to give up his title for you. His sharp gaze shot straight toward Anna. So surely you can give an answer. No, Friedrich tried to cut him off, pleading with the Crown Prince not to trouble Anna, saying these feelings were his alone. But the Crown Prince had no intention of letting it go. Don't say that. I only want to hear Anna's thoughts. It's not such a difficult question to answer, is it? The Crown Prince advanced toward them. His voice was filled with lofty contempt. Or, is this a situation in which you simply cannot state your position? He extended a hand, as if to touch Friedrich's shoulder. Stop! And his voice suddenly sliced through the tension. With unexpected force, she slapped the Crown Prince's hand away. Tears welled in her eyes. Turning to Friedrich, she choked out, I'm sorry for putting you in such a difficult position. Even though I knew my birth was lowly, I still foolishly dreamed of staying by your side. She stepped back, turned around, and refused to look at him again. How could someone as worthless as me make this nation lose a loyal subject? Her voice trembled. It was astonishingly firm. Friedrich's heart clenched hard, and he reached for her, but she avoided him. I'm sorry, Friedrich. I won't keep you in my heart anymore. Once I leave, you'll finally be free. Those words pierced his chest like knives. He knew it was an act, a performance necessary to get them out of their current predicament. But why did it still hurt so much? The Crown Prince, meanwhile, was completely stunned. The holy water had touched her, yet nothing had happened. This was not the outcome he had planned. Anna, please calm down first, Friedrich begged. But she merely shook her head and gave the Crown Prince a deep bow. Please forgive me, Your Highness. I must take my leave first. With that, she fled. She ran all the way out of the ballroom, and with every step, it felt as though her heart were being torn apart. Friedrich did not hesitate in the slightest. He drew his sword again, only to drop to one knee before the throne, sheath it, and lay it horizontally on the ground before him. From this day on, Anna is the only woman I will ever love, he swore, his voice filled with unshakable resolve. If that means I must relinquish my family's honor, then I am willing to offer everything I have to your highness. While that vow hung in the stunned and silent air, he rose to his feet and walked out without looking back, chasing after the woman he had just sworn with all his heart to protect. Gasps rose from the crowd. "I never imagined the Duke was such a sincere man," one man exclaimed. "To give up even his title for the sake of one woman. Can there be another person like that in this world?" But the Crown Prince was already burning with fury. "You," he roared at the guards. "Go after them at once." Friedrich found Anna collapsed on the floor in the corridor. Her shoulders were trembling, and he gently helped her up. A palace guard hurried over, trying to stop them. "Your Grace, please wait." But Friedrich simply pulled Anna straight into his arms. He told her to hold on, then wrapped her in his cloak, shutting out everything around her. "If you leave like this," the guard said awkwardly, "it will put me in a very difficult position." Friedrich did not even spare him a glance. His eyes remained fixed straight ahead, his expression colder than a winter night. "Whatever His Highness wishes to say," he said in a low voice that was almost frightening, "he can come and say it to me himself." Then he turned and walked away, carrying Anna. He left the palace and stepped into the cool night air. Only when they stopped beside a quiet fountain did the noise of the ballroom behind them finally begin to fade away. At last able to breathe, Anna let out a sigh and slumped down onto the stone edge. The garden beneath the starry sky was quiet and peaceful. "Who would have thought holy water would be sprinkled directly from above?" she muttered unhappily with a frown. "The Crown Prince really never runs out of ways to torment people." She drew in on herself and wrapped the cloak tighter around her. Friedrich stood there in silence, just watching her. He could not shake the look on her face when she had spoken those hurtful words earlier. Why did those tear-filled eyes keep replaying in his mind again and again? "We should return to the residence," he finally said softly. Just as Anna stood up, something small and metallic slipped from the folds of her skirt and hit the stone ground with a sharp clink. Both of them looked down in surprise. In the next instant, a dazzling, blinding light burst out from the object. It was the necklace that was supposed to suppress her dark power. Now, it was shining with an otherworldly radiance, like a tiny star pulsing faintly under moonlight. "This is—" Anna's eyes widened in shock as she murmured. The gem at her chest suddenly erupted in a brilliant flash. In that instant, a memory slammed violently into her mind. It was not her memory, nor did it belong to this life. It was a cold and dark vision, a young girl's pale, lifeless body bound in chains and sunk in deep water. She felt the weight of the chains, the suffocating pressure of the deep. Then a faint light flickered. A brilliant blue gemstone, exactly like the one she wore, gleamed in the darkness. She snapped her eyes open, the vision gone, but the feeling, that naked, overwhelming power, still lingered. Was this it? Was this what Eloise had meant by the effect of the mark? A mad and shudder-inducing thought took shape in her mind. A perfect solution so elegant it nearly stole her breath. A look close to ecstasy lit up her face as she abruptly turned to Friedrich beside her. "Friedrich," she cried, her voice trembling with excitement. "I think I've found it. The key to mobilizing the night order." Friedrich could only stare at her blankly, looking like a perfect portrait of confusion, as though a question mark were floating above his head. But she had no time to care about his bewilderment. Lifting the hem of her luxurious purple gown in one hand, she began tugging at the fabric. "There's no time to explain," she declared, her thoughts already racing far ahead. "Change clothes first." "Change clothes here." Friedrich could hardly believe his ears. Stammering, he asked if she had really come to a high society ball, carrying gear for stealth operations. Anna merely curled her lips, her eyes bright with pure confidence. "Of course," she shot back as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "When you go to the battlefield, do you leave your weapons behind?" As she spoke, she lifted the extravagant gown, revealing the practical clothing beneath. Simple corsetry, sturdy trousers, and straps tightly secured around her waist. Then she tossed a bundle of dark fabric at him. "This one's yours," she said with a grin carrying a hint of mischief. Friedrich stood there in a daze, watching her hold up the dress she had just taken off. It took him quite a while to find his voice and ask whether she truly intended to make him change right there in the open. "Do you want me to find you a dressing room?" His tone was full of disbelief, but she only waved a hand carelessly and had already reached out to tug at the sleeve of his formal coat. "You're awfully natural about taking your clothes off now," not embarrassed at all anymore. Even so, a faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "We've already been through worse together, haven't we?" she reminded him, the smile on her face never wavering. He could not argue with that. In the end, he let out a helpless sigh and removed his coat, revealing the near-perfect lines of the body beneath. Anna could not help staring for a moment, her gaze tracing slowly over the solid contours of his abdomen. "Do you like this?" she teased softly, one finger resting against her chin. "You really do have an excellent body." A faint blush swept across his cheeks, but he quickly collected himself, turned away, and muttered under his breath about how she had only just noticed, telling her to stop staring. But the moment he turned around, the teasing look on her face faded, replaced by concern. There was a large old scar across his back. It looked like it had been there for a long time. Had it been properly treated back then? The thought came to her involuntarily. He brushed off her worry lightly, saying that for places he could not reach, the butler usually helped him take care of it. A strange thought suddenly surfaced in her mind. Without the butler, wouldn't this man be completely incapable of taking care of himself? As if he could read her mind, he pulled on his new shirt and gave her a helpless look. "Even if I can't do it, I'll still manage to live," he said calmly. Then a mischievous glint flashed through his eyes. "If you're that concerned, I'll go find a spouse." Find a spouse, even if it were purely for practical mutual assistance. The idea was absurd. Yet, given his personality, he might actually do it, while never once asking the other person for help outright. What a troublesome man. He interrupted her thoughts and told her to turn around so he could change his trousers. But this time, it was her turn to tease him. "We've already come this far, and now you suddenly want to hide?" she said with a sly smile. "I'll keep watch for you, so hurry up and change." He sighed in complete resignation, muttered for her to stop joking like that, and quickly changed into the trousers. Playfully, she covered her face with the shirt he had taken off, muffled laughter slipping from her lips. So he'd still get shy, she thought, and for some reason a warmth spread through her chest. "Tell me when you're done," she said through the cloth. A moment later, his slightly annoyed voice came back, saying he was finished. She lowered the shirt and found his face full of displeasure. Unable to resist, she added, "You look almost disappointed." At once, he awkwardly averted his gaze, while she busied herself straightening her own clothes. "What are you talking about? I'm not that kind of person, okay?" she protested, but the smile on her face gave her away completely. "Besides, we have an important mission right now." As soon as she said that, she moved at once, lightly vaulting over the low wall nearby. "Over there, follow me," she called without looking back, her eyes already locked onto the target. She landed soundlessly, every muscle in her body taut and ready. The two of them crept along the side of the grand residence, sticking close to the shadows. Just as they neared a huge and ornate window, Friedrich's voice sounded low by her ear. "What are you looking at?" Inside the room, the Crown Prince was furious, his voice shrill and sharp as he berated the knight kneeling on the floor. He cursed them as useless for failing to capture even a trace of Eloise. The knight apologized repeatedly, then reported a new lead. Their investigation had found that a woman had moved into this kingdom at almost the exact same time Eloise disappeared. He held up a portrait, and Eloise's blood nearly froze in that instant. It was a face she knew better than anyone else. Silver hair, a calm expression. Anna. She had been Eloise's fiercely loyal maid in her previous life. Her heart slammed hard against her ribs, and her breath caught in her throat. The Crown Prince confirmed their plan. Soon, they would capture Anna. At that moment, a nearby floorboard suddenly gave a faint creak. The Crown Prince abruptly looked up. "Who's there?" he barked. A flicker of alarm flashed through Friedrich's eyes. "Hide," he whispered urgently, grabbing her and pulling her back into the shadows. Just as one of the guards stepped out through the door, the brooch at Eloise's chest suddenly flashed with a brilliant burst of magical light. Instinctively, she raised a hand to cover the brooch on her chest, silently praying that it had not been noticed. She and Friedrich pressed themselves flat against the wall, hiding behind a pillar, their hearts pounding in fierce unison. If they were exposed here, everything would be over. If he had to die by Eloise's sword, that would not be such a bad end, Friedrich thought darkly, his grip tightening around the hilt of his dagger. The guard took another step forward, his footsteps echoing through the tense silence. Just as he was about to come around the corner, a soft female voice suddenly drifted over from the garden. "Are you on patrol, Saintess?" It was the pink-haired young lady from the ball. She held a lantern in her hand, its gentle light illuminating her face. The guard turned his head and looked surprised when he saw her. "Ah, my lady," he said, his tone softening as well. She explained that she was about to deliver a late-night snack to His Highness. Wearing a sweet, innocent smile, she held out the basket. "If you do not mind, could you deliver it for me?" The guard agreed at once, and even told her that it was dangerous to be outside so late. He took the basket and turned to go back inside, and the garden once again fell silent. The pink-haired woman waited until he had gone before finally turning toward the shadows. Her voice was calm and clear. "You can come out now." Eloise and Friedrich stepped into view, both wearing expressions mixed with shock and wariness. "Why was she here?" The woman smiled serenely. "After you two left, the ball became terribly boring, so I slipped out soon after," she explained, her gaze coming to rest on Eloise. "And besides, blonde hair suits you very well." Eloise was so stunned that she could not speak for a moment. Friedrich stepped protectively in front of her, his voice low and threatening. "Why are you helping us?" The smile on the woman's face did not change in the slightest. "I am only repaying a debt," she said meaningfully, then turned and began to lead the way. The two followed behind her through the neatly trimmed garden. Their thoughts churned. A debt? They arrived at a magnificent, lavishly decorated room, yet it looked like a dead end. Eloise finally found her voice again and narrowed her eyes. "You already guessed my bloodline, didn't you?" "Since when?" The woman turned around, and in those pink eyes was an ancient look, as though she saw through everything. "From the day you pulled me out of the water." The words hung heavily in the air, laden with meaning. A water spirit. She was the very water spirit whom Anna had once saved. With a soft click, she pressed a hidden mechanism, and part of the wall slid open, revealing a dark staircase leading downward. "I only came to repay that debt," she said softly. "Do not be so wary."